Hello, you are listening to Trump Republic Radio. It is May 14th, 2017. It is also Mother's Day. Hopefully you said, you wished your mother a happy Mother's Day. This week, as always, I'm your host, Enzo Quesada, and I'm joined by my co-host, Bobby Hester.
Hello, everyone.
And this week on the show, we have return guest Sam Montoya.
Hello, what's up, y'all?
Before I ask y'all how your week's been, I just want to get some housekeeping stuff out of the way. We could definitely use more iTunes reviews. That's the best way you can help out the show. It only takes like 5 minutes to do, but it's a tremendous help. If you're listening on the YouTube, if you give us a like or a comment, that'll definitely get the word out more. If you're on the SoundCloud, which we don't get a lot of SoundCloud traffic, definitely a like or a reshare on that. But I think with that said, I want to ask y'all, how's your week been? What have you been up to?
Well, I spent the weekend at my house with my family, and we went to church this morning, and my dad grilled some steaks, and I got to see my mother, and it was a very beautiful Mother's Day for me.
It's pretty good. Sam, what have you been up to this last week?
I like that. Actually, I also got to spend time with my mother today, so I do want to say Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there, because, we wouldn't be here without them. But other than that, this week I had a vacation, so that was really nice.
Vacation?
Or a staycation.
Oh, you just stayed at home?
Well, stayed in town, hung around, got things done, so feeling rejuvenated.
How many days did you have off?
I had the whole week off.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it was pretty good.
As far as I went this week, I went to the high school 3 days this week, so that was good. We only have 2 weeks left at the high school, so we're really kind of winding down. It's kind of hard to keep the kids' morale up because they're just looking towards summer, but it seems like they're doing okay.
Yeah, for us college students here, we're finally on summer break, so
yeah, I've actually been done with college for like 2 weeks now. But I have to do summer classes, so that's June 1st.
That starts, I think, the first week of June.
Yeah,
so I'm taking those as well.
You have summer classes?
2 of them.
Oh, that sucks. But other than that, I just worked some, and I went to my dad's house in San Antonio for the first time in like months. So that was good. I don't see my dad much. I don't see my parents much at all. Not that I hate them, but called my mom, wished her happy Mother's Day. But yeah, that was my week. Let's just get into the show now, though. Let's get into this national news. There's a lot of news to get in this week, really. So the first thing that we definitely wanted to talk about is this James Comey stuff.
Hallelujah, Lord in heaven. We finally got rid of Comey. I'd like to actually, backstory how we found out about this. Me and Enzo were actually preparing for the midweek podcast that we did earlier this week about healthcare.
Oh, yeah, it was during the healthcare
And it was while we were preparing for that we actually saw the notifications that Comey got fired.
Yeah.
So I can't tell you how excited and jubilated we were to find that out.
Yes.
Yeah, it definitely made my week better. This has been a good week for Donald Trump stuff, so.
Yeah, for sure. I thought the Comey firing was awesome, especially like the reaction since then. It's been amazing.
It's been insane.
Yeah, it's been insane. Especially with Keith Olbermann trying to collude with Russia, saying that now they need to, even the Russian spies need to help America they need to help save America. Did you hear about that?
He said he wanted like some sort of foreign government to help overthrow the Trump administration.
Keith Olbermann openly called Donald Trump a traitor for it.
What does that guy do?
I don't know, but I know that
I just know he gets mad at Trump a lot.
There's one person who's actually wanting to debate him, and Mike Cernovich has put up $100,000 to charity if Olbermann agrees to do the debate. And obviously, I don't think he's going to because he's a spineless turd. But I just love the hilarity of people on Twitter calling for Trump's impeachment or firing because of this. When the left loved Comey, and then they hated him, and then they loved him again, and then they hated him again. And now Trump fired him, and they're like, "Oh no, Comey was the best. Donald Trump, you're terrible. Blah 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 blah." Yeah. When it was just, it's incredible.
I think he might have been advised that this would be popular though, because it seems to I think it actually caught him off a little bit. He hardly gets caught off guard by what happened, people's reactions to things.
Well, I was going to
But
say the fact that Comey was out of his office when it happened. He was in Los Angeles giving a speech to some other FBI people.
Yeah.
And this was the perfect opportunity because a guy like Comey has to have some type of like, kill switch in his office. So if he gets fired, boom, delete a lot of stuff. He was 3,000 miles away, completely caught off guard. And he was giving a speech to some people, and they said they had a TV on in the background that flashed the breaking news saying that Comey was fired. He thought they were pulling a prank on him.
Yeah.
And so, like, one of his guards or people kind of walked over and whispered in his shoulder to come over there. And then he came back a couple minutes later and said, well, guys, it's true, I'm fired. So he shook their hands and then left. But one thing that I
He
thought
didn't
was...
finish the speech.
No, he didn't. And one thing that I thought was hilarious was, do you guys kind of remember back in 1994, the Ford Bronco chase with O.J. Simpson?
Yeah.
When they were just like following him on the highway, it was just like that because the news media was following James Comey immediately from when he left that building, getting in that car, followed all the way down the highway as it's driving down till the point where he got in the plane to fly back to D.C. And what I heard, and I'm not sure if this is true, but I have no reason to believe it isn't, that like immediately they sent a team up to clear out his office. So if he had anything hidden in there that, he didn't want anyone to find, it's ours now, and we've got it locked away.
Who's that TV guy? Is it Stephen Colbert that, like, gave the news live and, like, everyone in the audience cheered?
Yeah.
He had to, like, scold
after.
them. He's like, please don't clap.
He's like, no, you can't do this. Like, well, you're not Trump supporters.
yeah, no, because exactly, 48 hours, 24 hours, 1 hour before the news broke, Democrats hated Comey. Like, collectively hated him because they blamed him for, like, 40-50% of Hillary's loss.
I love Trump's Twitter this week because, the Trump on Twitter that we all kind of know and love hasn't been there recently, but it was back this week, and he was on fire.
Nice.
He posted that video that it was a compilation of a bunch of leading Democrats calling for Comey to either be fired or to step down, and those are the same people who are like, oh, no, Comey was great. And the best tweet that I think Trump has sent out of his presidency so far was when he retweeted Rosie O'Donnell, and she had a tweet back in January that simply said, fire Comey, and he retweeted her and he said, hey, we finally agree on something, Rosie.
The dude's, like, the best at the bands. Like
we finally got troll Trump Twitter back. Like, that's been missing for a while, and I love it.
Because he kind of went shill for a while, which is kind of depressing.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many people that are just like, no, Trump shouldn't tweet. His tweets destroy, like, stocks and stuff, and, like, it's just the worst. I think most people don't like Trump's Twitter, but, I mean, I'm down with it.
For sure. I think he should tweet more.
He definitely should. Did you guys see the tweet that he sent out mistakenly that just said we?
No.
Oh, yeah.
It was just the word we.
Nice.
It was out there for like 5 minutes before he deleted it. A bunch of people screenshotted it, and they're making like memes off of it.
Well,
yeah, a lot of
enjoy it.
people are like responding was and then Kangs. Which, if you don't know that meme, I recommend you look up was Kangs. You'll like what you find. It's very funny.
Yeah.
But back to James Comey in particular. Now, there's a lot of reasons why we're happy this happened, of course. Comey's been garbage for so long. Going back to the summer when Hillary was under investigation for those emails. Do you remember that?
Yeah, he said, I think it was his word that said that no reasonable prosecutor would do it, even though like the evidence was unsurmountable against her.
Like
Ridiculous.
he gives that like rundown to which this is like not a thing that ever happens. There's no press conferences for like investigations. Like there was a lot of people mad that he did that because you're not supposed to disclose how you're gonna like rule or whatever. That's like terrible. But he just gives off all this list of like this is unethical, this is like immoral and all this stuff. But he just says at the end like, with that said, I don't think that we should investigate Hillary Clinton.
Yeah. And now that he's fired, people are saying it's like Nixon, it's like Watergate, right?
They're trying to compare the two because Nixon fired his FBI prosecutor, but Nixon was like actively under investigation there. Trump, they've confirmed that Trump is not under investigation right now.
For sure.
Now I know they're trying to investigate the alleged like Russian interference in the election, But they've let Trump know over and over again he is not under investigation, and there has been no evidence at all provided that the Trump administration or that Trump's team was colluding with Russia.
That's been like the big spin I've seen the most from people talking about it. Obviously, I don't watch any like media. I don't even watch TV, but like everyone's been saying like, "Oh, he did this to stop Comey from investigating him for his Russian connections. This is like a huge scandal. This is a coup d'etat." Like as we just said, like Comey told him on 3 occasions, I believe, like you're not under investigation.
Yeah, especially in Trump said that again in that letter that he wrote, telling him he'd been fired, which you guys saw the letter, right? You guys saw the troll thing in the letter?
Oh, yeah, the I win.
I win. If you take the first letters of the paragraphs, it spells I win. Like, that's the Trump we know and love.
That's hilarious.
I've had, like, multiple people, like, text me or message me about this because, like, you know, I'm, like, very open with my Trump support and, like, they just want to know my opinion, and like a lot of people have been mad about how he went about firing him, but I don't care about James Comey. Like I'm glad he just got like a letter. He didn't meet with him at all. I'm glad he just had to leave his speech and go home sad.
Yeah. Dude, the best part as well, like, was when they asked Putin, like, what do you think? And he's like dressed in hockey gear. Did y'all hear about that?
Yeah, I saw the picture. I didn't actually see the video.
Oh, you didn't see it? Oh, dude, I saw it a couple of different ways. Like, man, he's doing a charity or like a, you know, I'm not sure. I'm not into hockey, but some kind of event where he's in full gear out there on the ice. They pulled him off to ask him about Comey. That's ridiculous. That's how crazy.
That's the head of the FBI for the United States. Like, why would he even know like anything about him?
Picture.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure Putin just wanted to play hockey at that point.
It sounded like it. Like he was like chuckling, giving them the answer, but he actually humored them and gave them a full response, basically saying, "I have nothing to do with that." That and it's kind of a little funny that you're asking me that.
But to kind of go back to the whole like people thinking that's like, oh, Trump's firing the guy investigating him. You see, especially on Twitter, so many people that are just like, actively commenting on like every single thing that has to do with Trump, saying like, oh, Trump's ties to Russia. Well, I mean, we obviously know that isn't true. But these people actually believe this stuff, and they vote.
See, like, all week I've been so tempted to just post a status on Facebook because, like, I shit post on Facebook, but I try to hold back sometimes, but I do make points. And, like, I just wanted to post a status that was like, can anyone name a Russian that helped hack the election for Donald Trump yet? Like, you can't name a single Russian. We've been talking about this garbage for, like, over a half a year now.
They tried with that ambassador, and like he was with Trump the other week, like last week or something.
Well, yeah. Later that afternoon, Trump met with the Russian ambassador and the Ukrainian ambassador, and I think he tweeted something, or at least made a comment saying something like, let's finally get some peace
in the Ukraine
situation. But I mean, to kind of go back to the Russia stuff, like you guys know Louise Mensch, right?
Yeah.
She's a former conservative MP in the UK. Who's like 100% anti-Trump. Like there's a famous article that she had about her when she said that the hard drugs she took really screwed up her brain. But if you go on her Twitter, it's like 100% tweets about like Trump and Russia. And afterwards she said something like, Russia didn't influence our election. They hacked our election. If they want war, then war is what they're going to get. It's not even her election. She lives in the United Kingdom.
Even like Noam Chomsky said, I believe like a month ago, that the left's obsession with this Russia stuff is unhealthy. Like even Noam Chomsky, the great leftist intellectual, understands that this is really dumb.
And I forget who it was. I think it was not Adam Schiff, but it was some other congressional dude, whoever it was. It was some Republican guy. Some leftists in his district put up a billboard talking about a town hall debate, and they said, at the next town hall, bring up Russia. And that was a billboard that they paid to put up. Like, the left is completely obsessed over this story. And frankly, I hope they continue it the entire time, because the longer it goes on with no evidence being presented, by the time the midterms hit, they're going to be so preoccupied with that we'll just retake, we'll get that supermajority that we've been talking about.
See, like, if you continue with the Russia narrative, you don't need to, like, have any sort of self-evaluation of what went wrong. You have something to blame. It's just like Hillary Clinton saying sexism, that's the reason I lost. Even though they've done polling, like, they've done polling, like, even the WikiLeaks didn't really have a big influence on the election.
Yeah, it was something like 97% of people said that WikiLeaks did not influence who they voted for.
And to bring this back to James Comey, he did this, I believe, like 2 months ago. He set the standard. He said that Russia was behind WikiLeaks, which, if you read the WikiLeaks, like, you can figure out how John Podesta, it was a phishing email, which if you don't know what that is, it's just like spam, like the Nigerian print stuff, like, hey, you're getting attacked for this antivirus thing. We need your password.
If you give your password away.
His password was password.
Yeah, it's not getting hacked. That's not. He got duped. He got scammed, but it's not getting. It's not getting.
This is not like high Russian espionage. This is just like he's a dumb boomer who doesn't understand technology that got conned and gave up, like, massive secrets to corruption. Which, like, if you bring this back to the entire thing about the emails and WikiLeaks, they say it's like hacking and manipulation of the election. Why aren't we allowed to know about the bad things Hillary Clinton's done? Like, there's so much dirt in those, but the media didn't report on that at all. They were carrying water for Hillary the entire time. But to bring this back to Comey, he gave a lot of, like, inaccurate testimony to Congress, right?
Yeah, that's correct. The last time he was testifying, they were asking about the emails that were found in Anthony Weiner's laptop, and he said something along the lines of, they were only there because they were like backups, but the FBI even sent a letter clarifying it, stating that testimony was wrong. They weren't backups. They were part of email chains that were previously undiscovered.
The FBI investigation right before the election was reopened because of Anthony Weiner emails, wasn't it?
Yeah, because they found his laptop like a week before the election.
I'm pretty sure Huma Abedin's going to go to jail at some point.
It would not surprise me.
Well, Anthony Weiner should be there anyways because he's a pedophile and he's, like, corrupt, but I definitely believe Huma Abedin's going to get the short end of the stick on this in the end.
Well, that all depends on who Trump replaces as FBI director.
Yeah.
And I know there's a short list going along right now that has several names, but I just kind of want to go around. Who would you all like to see as FBI director?
Who's the senator for Texas, like Cornyn?
John Cornyn. They said that he was one of the people being interviewed.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really know the list so well, but he's the person I know. And, I want to keep our senators in Texas, but, I mean, we're going to appoint another Republican.
Well, yeah, and that's exactly right. And if he gets out, the way that the Senate works is there's no special election. We just appoint one by the governor. So Greg Abbott would just appoint whoever he wants to fill in his spot until his term is served out. So, I mean, Greg Abbott's more Republican than John whatever his name.
Greg Abbott's, like, more Republican than Donald Trump.
Yeah. So if it was Cornyn who got placed as the head of the FBI, the Senate would get even more red than it currently is, which is a good thing. But frankly, then they try to mess with all that stuff, and you don't want to mess with Texas.
I love Governor Wheels so much. If he's the one making the pick, I'm fine. I trust this guy 100% at this point.
I know that one of the people they said that they might get is Trey Gowdy. Which, I mean, he's good, but I feel like we can just do better. I kind of like him staying in the house where he's at.
Trump says he's looking to reveal his pick next week, Friday.
Yeah.
So that's definitely something to look out for. I don't get why he always puts deadlines for things like that.
It's a business thing. Businessmen set themselves deadlines, and he's just continuing that train of thought.
Yeah. But we're currently doing the interviews right now for it.
Yeah, so, Sam, who would you like to see?
Honestly, I don't know the candidates that well either. I do see the political advantage of John Cornyn, like you said. I really trust Governor Wheels for sure. Like that. No,
I've shaken Governor Wheels' hand
Did you?
before. Yeah.
Wow.
We went to a book signing with him in New Braunfels.
Nice. He's really cool, man. He's a really cool guy, and I didn't see this on the list, but were we going to talk about? Did he just do that Facebook signing of the sanctuary city?
Yeah, we at the end
We
of our
got some
last
more stuff
episode,
to talk about that, but we
Yeah.
mentioned
Yeah.
that in the last podcast. It actually broke while we were
It
doing
broke
it.
at the very end of our episode.
Word.
Which it was like the very last thing reported, so it was like
We were
okay.
we were doing our like kind of summing up the show and be like, hey guys, thanks for watching. Right when it was like, guys, this broke on Facebook. He just signed it into law.
It was just like
But
the best.
yeah,
news
we're
to
gonna
start end with.
we're gonna talk about that later on.
I don't really have so much more to say about Comey though. Do y'all have anything?
Well, I think the only thing that I want to say is I was listening to another podcast and another guy brought up a very good point that Trump might just go ahead and pick someone that like no one's ever heard of who has a really good record, just like an outsider, which would not surprise me, but what we've said is what we've said.
I just want to say one other thing though about Trump being compared to Nixon. Used to be people were comparing him to Hitler. So now that they're comparing him to Nixon, I think he's winning some people over.
I mean,
That's just joking.
in the people's minds, no one really likes Nixon, but they just like Hitler more than Nixon. So if we've got that if we've got the comparison down to Nixon, we can get better from there.
I actually have one point that just came into my head. A lot of people have been, including my dad, which I talked about this driving back from San Antonio, believe this is done by Trump being vindictive, but this was actually something recommended for him to do by Attorney General Jeff Sessions and Deputy Attorney Rod Rosenstein. Now, obviously, Jeff Sessions is our guy, but as far as Rod Rosenstein goes, he actually has served under, I believe, both Bill Clinton and George Bush. And when he got confirmed for the position through the Senate, he was passed 96-4. So he's just not a very political guy. He's just good at his job. So everyone was okay with him doing it. And also, with the precedent of Trump firing the head of the FBI, this has actually been something that's been done before. Bill Clinton did this in 1993. So this is not something unique to Trump. This is not some sort of dictatorship-like action. It's happened before.
And also, legally, presidents can fire heads of FBI for any reason whatsoever at any time.
Yeah.
And that's what the law directly says.
Now, from the very get-go, I didn't understand why Trump kept this guy on. I was kind of okay with him staying on because he tried to investigate Hillary at the end, but he was bad news pretty much from the get-go, so...
And, that's the other thing that I was going to say is, people have brought up the fact that we're going to get a new FBI director, and they're probably going to actually start the Hillary investigation. So I hope that they do. I wouldn't be surprised if they do. I wouldn't be surprised if they don't. But, we have a much better chance without Comey in there.
Yeah, this is definitely... I don't really care about lock her up so much. I thought that was just kind of like, oh, I love yelling lock her up at these Trump rallies. It's fun. But now it's like an actual reality. And
even if they don't go after her, but they go after Huma Abedin and Anthony Weiner, that's good enough for me.
Yeah, that's pretty good for me. Somebody needs to be held responsible.
I think she should get in trouble. At least reopen the investigation, like you guys said. Statute of limitations is still good to go on that. They can recheck all that, but also mainly because it would be even a good political move. And of course, yes, she deserves to get in trouble. But she's escaped the law, the arm of the law, for decades.
It also doesn't help the fact that I think Comey's been a friend of the Clintons since 2002.
Yeah.
So you're talking about a guy who is an insider.
It wasn't a promise, I would say, because we don't live in a banana republic. He's not even supposed to direct the Justice Department, Trump.
Yeah,
But-
he can't order a
Right.
special investigation.
Right, but in a way, although it wasn't a political promise or anything like that, because he couldn't make that as a political promise, it was part of the campaign that it will hurt him in 2020 if people see that he just avoided it completely. But at the beginning of his after the election, of him, in the middle of the transition period, he did say, well, we'll see what happens. But that was the right thing to do. He's just playing it day by day. He's adapting. He's becoming a better president every day. So
Right, and if you want to accomplish a goal, you have to take the necessary steps in order to do it.
Yeah.
And this is one of them. So you wouldn't be able to do it without doing this. So it is a step in the right direction if that is someone's goal.
Yeah, like personally, I kind of don't want him to put her in jail. Like the idea that he puts his the presidential candidate that he ran against in the election in jail. That's not really good for the unity of the nation.
If she gets in a court of law, if she gets found guilty of a crime, and maybe if she doesn't even go to jail, but just it's on a record and there's legal consequences. If there's legal consequences, I mean, you can't say, oh, Trump commanded that to happen. That's in court of law.
Yeah. To me, she's just old and irrelevant, and people don't really like her that much. So
I think it would be good to try to at least, because the public, when I say the public, you will know what I mean. The public kind of likes Hillary Clinton, at least like half the country does.
Yeah.
And so if he kind of goes and just pisses them off even more, I mean, it's not like you're going to win those people over in 2020. They were never going to vote for you to begin with.
But I think there's also a part of the public that is so easily swayed towards the Clintons just for the sake of it, that not because they necessarily like them, but because like other people in their circles are Democrats or whatever. And so like why does Chelsea deserve the award she's been getting, like, for helping, people, and all she did was, get people to pack grapefruit.
Oh yeah, I mean, speaking of Chelsea Clinton, the media's trying to push her now.
That's what I'm saying. So in order to really stomp out that Clinton legacy, you may have to address it, because Hillary's coming out, bro, going to women's conferences, claiming to be part of the resistance, claiming to she's going to start some more things. So obviously she doesn't have the same level of support, but there are people still saying, well, we can still guide you towards a path to victory. Or Chelsea.
It would at least keep her distracted enough to not be able to focus on any sort of future political runs for campaigns or whatever. So,
well, she said she's not going to run for anything ever again.
She said that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We reported about that, I think, a month ago. Maybe even longer ago.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand, like, Bill Clinton, he's a great speaker. He's very likable. Even my mom, who has pretty much always been a Republican, she actually voted for Bill Clinton in 1996, before she became really right-wing and whatnot. But I can't understand how people like Hillary Clinton. I understand not liking Donald Trump. I really do. I don't blame you if you think Donald Trump is an idiot fool. I love him. He's my idiot fool. Hillary Clinton? I don't get it.
She's one of the most unlikable people out there. Like, she's almost as unlikable as Ted Cruz.
Yeah, how do you not get that?
Like remember during the second debate when Donald Trump's like, because he'd be in jail and everyone cheered.
Everyone cheered. Yeah. Everyone cheered. And that was like a nonpartisan audience.
I mean, because there's several things that she's done that she's been obviously escaped legal prosecution, like Haiti and the pay-for-play scheme she's done in Haiti, and the way she's messed up the communities in Haiti after the earthquake, asking for funds and using it to help her friends pad their pockets, like.
Yeah, Bobby's actually he's got the book Clinton
Cash. I've got the book Clinton Clash signed by the author.
Oh, Roger Stone? No, who's
no, Peter Schweizer.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm thinking of Clinton's War on Women. I think that was yeah.
Clinton Cash is a really good documentary. If you've never seen it, it's not even that long. I think it's like an hour.
It was made by Dinesh D'Souza, I believe, right? Or was it someone else who made the documentary?
I don't really remember. She had also the Russian-Ukrainian deal where we sold like a fourth of our uranium to Russia. Like, it's funny that they even talk about Trump-Russia ties when, like, she literally has Russia controversy.
Yeah, that's the other thing. And the fact that she uses her political weight to avoid media scrutiny. It annoys the right. But, I mean, she can't do that anymore as much. That's why she's staying out of the limelight or keeping it to a minimum, because she doesn't have the same friends in the high places that she did before. If she'd have been president, bro, oh man, can you imagine what she'd be doing with the propaganda tools at her disposal?
We would be fighting in Russia.
Yeah.
Just her as Secretary of State, like Benghazi, Libya, Syria, the Iran deal. I don't get it. But this is a huge side tangent. We're wasting time.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's get into do you have the stuff on the nominees up, Bobby?
Yes, I do.
Let's get into that. So Trump is looking to appoint at least 5 judges to the appeals courts. 10 actually. This is actually a lot. He hasn't appointed people nearly as fast as past administrations at all. But I guess he's just trying to find better candidates. Two of them, I believe, were his Supreme Court nominees. Well, people on his short list for that. But he's saying that he's looking to send them straight to the Ninth Circuit Court.
That's something that we definitely need to do. That court's been out of control for decades, and it's time to reel that in and just, switch it towards our side. Because that's the only court that's like extremely liberal in America. Everything else is either conservative or at least moderate. There's a reason why the left files everything in the Ninth Circuit Court, because they know they're going to win.
Something like 85% of things sent there passes.
Yeah, in 80% of their stuff gets overturned by the Supreme Court, too.
Yeah.
So it's obvious that this is like, it's a court system that's definitely not on the side of America.
That's where the travel ban, at least I know the second one, went through.
That's where both of them went through.
God damn it.
And I think also one of the other executive orders was being fought in the Ninth Circuit.
Such good news, though. Oh, man. Trump is on fire with this getting rid of Comey and now getting us some new good federal judges. Definitely good on track. Sam or Bobby, you have anything else to say?
Well, I would say that, this article that we're reading, it's out of Fox News. It says that both President Obama, George W. Bush, and Bill Clinton all made over 300 appointments to lower courts. And so far, Trump is only looking to replace about 130, or at least get 130 more people into lower courts, because there are a lot of vacancies. So it's important to fill the vacancies first and then look to get rid of the judges that are, the worst of them.
Trump has a lot of vacancies throughout his administration. That's actually another thing we're going to talk about. But, yeah, I don't really have any more to say about this other than it's good news.
Yeah, they said that they're gonna roll out additional nominees at regular intervals. So this is just the first wave that's coming through. So things are looking up.
Yeah. Now, the next thing we have to talk about is Trump has launched a new executive order to investigate voter fraud, which I'm super excited about. Oh, man, voter fraud? Hell yeah, dude. I know the left hates this, though. Bobby or Sam, do you have thoughts on this new executive order?
I mean, I love it. I absolutely love it because it is something that needs to be looked into. But I would also like to just kind of clarify something that's always spread around. He never claimed that 3 million illegals voted in the election. He claimed that 3 million people voted illegally in the election. Now, that includes people that, are illegals that might have voted. That also includes people that weren't registered to vote that could have voted, people that voted multiple times, people that voted in multiple states or multiple districts. That's what he's talking about. And
fraudulent registration.
Correct. And that's not necessarily saying that there's 3 million illegals in the United States that voted, just that there were 3 million votes that were cast illegally, which, I mean, there's at least some evidence to prove that. I mean, we saw that in North Carolina, there was 500 votes that were deemed illegal that they already revoked. So, especially when you look at states like California, which have like almost no barriers to trying to prevent the wrong people from voting. It's very likely that if you actually started looking into this stuff, you can uncover vast amounts of votes. Maybe not necessarily 3 million, but if you can get like 500,000 votes here and there, oh my gosh, that's suddenly really changing things.
Depending on how thorough they are, and I think Trump realizes it, that's why I think he put Pence, in charge, right? He's in charge, right?
I don't
No,
know.
he's getting this other guy. God, I can't find his name here. Okay, yes. Pence is chairing the panel, and the Kansas Secretary of State, Chris Kobach, is the vice chair. And they said that they're going to report back to Trump with their findings by 2018.
Right.
So this is going to be like a year-long investigation.
Right. And I bet you they're going to do it. They're shooting, right now the timetable is they're shooting for before the elections.
Oh, yeah.
So that's good. But that's why I'm saying Pence is the chairman. And so depending on how thorough they are, which I'm pretty sure they're going to be, because Pence has a lot more skin in the game than Trump's top advisors who's doing the leaking, which is pissing me off. But Pence is in charge of this part of the investigation of what's happening in under the administration. And of course, they're going to find a lot of fraud.
Oh, yeah.
I've heard voter fraud experts interviewed many times saying that, of course, it's not going to be, in certain areas, but California, you know what I mean, Chicago, other areas, there's going to be lots of voter fraud. And Pence knows, they understand, so they're going to be thorough, release a report before the 2018 midterms, and we'll win from there.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, imagine if they, right before the 2018 election, you put out this report stating, where voter fraud occurred, how it occurred, all that stuff. You can even use that to push national voter ID laws, which I'm in support of personally.
He needs to do that.
Yeah,
that's like
definitely something. I don't think that's going to get done in the first 2 years, but after the midterms, especially if they have conclusive evidence that they come out with showing that there was definitely massive voter fraud, that's easily something that you can get, especially if you get the supermajority in the House and Senate. That's going to easily go through.
Do you remember during the recount in Michigan, they're finding like a ton of
They found
voter
like,
fraud?
was it like 6,000 or 60 or I remember there being a 6 and a lot of zeros. Because they said that a lot of because those are paper ballots that they had to run through the machine. And a lot of Hillary votes were run through multiple times. And that's voter fraud. Yeah. A lot of people think voter fraud is, there's many different definitions, but that is it. And there's many different types of voter fraud.
And the Dems knew they had to commit as much voter fraud as possible to sort of push her over the edge. And even with that,
we still won.
We still won. There would have been such a landslide. So we'll see. We got to get to the bottom of it, and I'm glad.
But I mean, if you look how close Michigan was, I mean, if voter fraud even got like worse than what we saw, like Trump could have lost Michigan, and that wouldn't have lost the election. But I mean, if you look how close it was in all those states, like we also did, because this is all off the Jill Stein recounts. They stopped it in Michigan because they're finding too much crap, and like Trump was actually gaining votes. But they also found the same in Pennsylvania, which Pennsylvania was another one of those close ones that's pretty much what put Trump over the.
It was the one that put Trump over the edge.
That was the one that put him over, which I always believed he'd win Pennsylvania.
I had him winning Pennsylvania in my model.
I didn't predict Wisconsin or Michigan, but I knew that's
right.
possible.
I predicted Michigan, but I didn't predict Wisconsin.
Right? No one did.
No one did.
Although this one expert was saying, and I don't know what states they are, but she was saying Hillary stole at least 5. So if at the end of this investigation, if there were 5 states she won that should have gone for Trump.
Well, I was going to say, just to say how close it was, there's a guy on Twitter, his name is Larry Schweikert. Yeah. He's the guy who wrote the book How Trump Won, which is a very good book. He's really good at like poll analysis and stuff. To look at how close it was, another 500,000 votes to Trump would have flipped like 6 more states. You could have won Nevada, you could have won New Hampshire, you could have won Colorado, and it was at least 6 more states, I think is what he said. So if you come out saying, look, there's massive voter fraud, here's the evidence, here's where it is, do that right before the midterms, you keep your guys in the House, you gain some seats, you keep your guys in the Senate, you gain some seats, because there's a lot of vulnerable Democrats that are out there. And you can easily win, because like they said, of the 33 senators up for re-election, like 20 of them are Democrats, and something like 8 of those Democrats are in states that Trump won easily. So you should be able to get at least a few of those.
And even include those very close states. I mean, those could have easily went to Trump, and Trump already, won big league in the Electoral College. Can you imagine how big league he would have won if those states went to him?
And I've been saying this the entire time about the re-election is there's a reason. Excuse me. There's a reason people voted for Trump, and all he has to do is if he just accomplishes his goals, or at least accomplishes a lot of them, or is on track to accomplishing more, those people are going to vote for him in re-election. And especially if you can get national voter ID passed before the 2020 election, going into that with a very, with a Democratic Party that's just completely decimated across the country, who has very little support in any state houses even, you're talking landslide victory.
And who are they going to run in 2020? Elizabeth Warren?
I know.
Cory Booker?
Rosie O'Donnell.
Like, I would not be surprised if we can win at least 35 states. Win the states that you won and maybe flip a couple of the close ones like we were talking about. And I think that's entirely possible, especially if you can get this investigation completed with concrete evidence,
that's
everywhere.
What I'm saying. Pence is chairing it because this is very important.
And if you also think about it, people joke a lot that the vice president doesn't really do anything, which that's kind of true in some regards. So if he can just like start focusing a lot of his, he doesn't get as much attention as Trump does. So he can easily start doing this like without anyone noticing. And then just boom, you come out and say, here's our investigation, we're done.
I think Trump definitely, he needs to do voter IDs nationally and purge the registration, because there's a lot of fraudulent registration all across the board. He needs to do this before 2018. I mean, if you lose a seat because of that, I don't think he's going to be able to, but I mean, that's what he should be doing.
Most of the time, a sitting president loses seats in the midterms for their party.
Right.
I don't think
we are not on track to do that for the House. And the Senate, we're looking to gain. That's what people are talking about. There's a very good possibility we could have a veto-proof supermajority in the Senate and in the House.
I saw a guy running against Maxine Waters interviewed today.
There's been so many recent elections with Democrats where they've really tried hard, they've thrown money, and it's pretty much been a referendum on Trump, and they easily win. I've been seeing so many people saying, "Oh, we're gonna get the midterms and we'll shut down Donald Trump." I really don't think they'll do well in the midterms at all. I mean, what's the Democrat message? What have they even done since Donald Trump won?
And like we said, they keep pushing this whole Russia thing. Meanwhile, we got the economy. We're actually starting to deport some people. I know we're going to talk about the wall later, but that's continuing to go on at a slow pace, but it's still continuing to go on. And, like I said, that's the reason why the Rust Belt states especially voted for Trump, was economic matters. And that's obviously going in our favor right now.
And we've already reported on, especially to Michigan, a lot of factories have been coming back.
That's right.
But I think we need to get into the next thing. This is a very funny story. So Donald Trump had some ice cream. And Donald Trump had 2 scoops. Everyone else got 1 scoop.
No!
We need... Honestly, guys, this is the most important story of the week. This is an impeachable offense, and by impeach, I'm talking peach ice cream, because we need to bond together and make sure that this tyrant in the Oval Office cannot get away with this tyranny and this oppression anymore. Because he gets the 2 scoops. Why does he get the 2 scoops and I only get 1?
He thought he was ordering the Napoleon, but he got Neapolitan.
And, if it takes 2 scoops for Trump to be able to do what he does, give him the 2 scoops.
This guy eats a lot of dessert. He was eating the chocolate cake during, the Syria strikes, and now he's eating all this ice cream. He needs to cut back.
He eats a lot of fast food, too. You remember during I think it was actually back during the primaries, when he was eating fast food with a fork and knife.
It was KFC.
With eating KFC with silverware. He eats a lot of fast food.
Have you seen how he eats pizza? He eats it backwards.
Well, you know why, right?
No.
You've seen the Pizza Hut commercial from back in the 90s?
Yeah.
When he was married to Ivana Trump. And in that commercial, they had him eat it backwards just because it was, funny that way. And I think ever since then, he just, does it that way.
I've seen a lot of photos with him with McDonald's.
Yeah,
I mean, a lot of McDonald's.
Even the article we pulled up is him on his plane eating McDonald's. He always drinks Diet Coke, too. Because remember the tweet he sent out, "I've never seen a fat person drinking Diet Coke."
Speaking of Maxine Waters, though, she had this meeting in Inglewood, and this guy, he did some kind of street art around it, and they put on this park bench, quote, this is a quote from Maxine Waters, quote, "2 scoops of ice cream is not fair. Impeach Trump."
That was in Time Magazine, I think.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
CNN ran, I think it was 3 to 5 articles on their website about this. That's what the left is focusing on right now.
That's the patriarchy. And that is what happens when millennials get jobs working for CNN or BuzzFeed, and they're able to post things like this and make it look like legitimate news.
They're trying to make it go viral. It's some anti-Trump story, but nobody cares.
Yeah.
Just imagine this. If you're a working class person living in let's say Michigan, and a plant is closed down, and the economy of your city never really recovered from the economic recession, and all of a sudden you've got a guy in there who's we're going to bring back the jobs, we're going to get the plants back, you're going to be good, and then you vote for him, and then you start to see it happen, and then the media starts talking about 2 scoops of ice cream versus 1. No one cares.
That's first world news.
No one cares. Like, this is the definition of fake news. Like,
Yeah.
it's real, but no one cares, and it's
Yeah.
not going to do a damn thing.
No. You might as well do gossip. You know what I mean? It's not legitimate. It's insane.
TMZ is more art. Even TMZ probably wouldn't even go with this story.
TMZ is hard, cutting edge journalism.
We should
Don't counter signal TMZ.
Obviously it went viral with the memes from CNN because they were the ones who really pushed the story hard.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Can we just kick CNN out of the White House press room?
They're still getting like 2 million voters or 2 million viewers on average though. But all I have to say is Maxine Waters, God, she's just so dumb. Just so goddamn dumb. She's just stupid. Where do they find these people? I have no idea.
It's Maxine Waters and who's the one from Houston? It's got 3 names.
Houston? Oh, I don't know.
The one other African American Democrat female representative.
I don't know.
I should know this. I'm embarrassed right now. Those two are the dumbest.
Maxine Waters, do your job. Just don't talk about Trump ice cream. Doesn't matter.
Do you think we can honestly get the sergeant at arms of the House to just start arresting people for their stupidity?
They should just have to do intelligence tests.
Do an IQ test for Congress and see how that pops up.
I'd love to see the results. I don't think she'd do very well.
Oh, definitely not.
I think she's gonna lose, man. The guy he's a Trump supporter, hardcore. But the Trump supporter I saw running against her in her district, he's getting out there. He's campaigning hard. I'm not sure of his name right now, but I mean, she's just taking the race baiting to the extreme. I think she was on the MTV Music Awards or something like that.
I mean, I don't think he's going to win simply for the fact that that's a very gerrymandered district.
It's California.
We're talking South Central Los Angeles.
Well,
Inglewood.
What I'm saying is according to the interview, they're getting out there and registering a lot of people, and they're making a lot of headway. I'm just saying, while she's trying to get the rest of the resistance movement kind of swinging to the crazy side, she's already there, she might be losing votes in her own district. I mean, but you're right. If there's gerrymandering to the point where she's already working with a big advantage, like HRC against Bernie, then what are you gonna do? But at the same time, I think she's losing some popularity in her district. I mean, because that street art was one, and that was probably an artist from her district, right?
Yeah, it was. And to be perfectly honest, if I was the Democratic Party, and I had a guy like Maxine Waters, especially now making a lot of headway.
Not a guy, a woman.
Yeah, sorry, my bad. It's like Maxine Waters. I would definitely try, as the Democratic Party, I would definitely try to primary her out and get a more competent Democrat in there.
Yeah, I would just, I wouldn't blame them if they just did that. That's the right move.
Yeah.
She can't control herself, but
and
I don't think we should side tangent so much because we still got so much to get into.
Yeah, so let's keep going.
So Trump is aiming to eliminate a lot of redundant government hiring. Do you have some of the stuff up, Bobby?
Yeah, they're trying to just get rid of a lot of federal programs that are duplicate, ineffective, and counterproductive programs. And it's pretty much just looking to reduce the waste of taxpayer dollars, which includes firing a lot of people that are hired because of that.
Reducing the bureaucracy a lot. People never really saw Trump as, this big limited government guy. And, to an extent, I agree as well. It doesn't bother me so much. Other right-wing people it does, but he is doing a lot of measures to stop that. He also had that executive order on the freezing of hiring,
which that actually it ran out. It was like a 100-day
yeah.
thing.
So they're getting back to that, but he's still held back from a lot of expansion of the bureaucracy, which is
absolutely
the most important thing you could pretty much do. Sam, do you have any thoughts on this?
Nope.
It's more of draining the swamp, which is definitely something that we need.
Yeah, drain the swamp. But the next thing we want to go into, which I know, Sam, you actually have a lot to say, is this Liberty University speech that Trump gave.
Yeah, that I enjoyed quite a bit. And I got the chance to watch it live because I was actually off on my little staycation. So enjoyed doing that. Of course, Fox News broadcasts every second of it. I got to watch him just give it to his critics. Basically, that was another one-liner, if you want to put it that way, that made headlines. Was that critics are pathetic. The easiest thing in the world is to be a critic, and being a critic is pathetic. He said the future belongs to the dreamers. So it was pure inspirational Trump.
But not the dreamers.
I thought the same thing. I was like, but not the dreamers. But anyways, that's another thing. It was a great speech. The stadium was packed. The optics were amazing. Many students opted to wear the MAGA hat, which made headlines on Drudge Report.
I would do that.
Yeah, they wore the MAGA hat, which was awesome. The different the optics was just great, and which Fox News zoomed out to get the full
picture,
crowd scope and picture, and then also they had people on the ground getting different angles. It was MSNBC that focused.
Did the close up?
Close up on Trump the whole speech, and not only that, for most of his speech, I would say about 90%, 85 to 90% of his speech from when he started to when he ended, they did not have audio playing. They had him in the middle of the screen, and on the left side was 3 panelists, on the right side was 3 panelists, and they were commentating because they could hear the speech, but they didn't allow the viewers to hear any of it. One time they're like, hold on, we're going to go to Trump. And they actually allowed the audio from him talking to come in, was where they thought he was going to talk about the New York Times. He just mentioned the New York Times in passing in his speech. And they're like, oh, we thought he was going to talk about the failing New York Times. Back to our commentary. In other words, they're just censoring everything. And then at the bottom of the screen where the headline banner is, it would say something like, Trump says, in America, we worship God, not government. But you didn't hear him saying it, you know what I'm saying, on Fox News. So just the difference in the way they covered the speech. Obviously knew it was going to be very inspirational. So MSNBC wasn't having any of that,
He hasn't given any big speeches in a while, but that's really where Trump has always been most comfortable.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Trump, towards the very end, he was oftentimes doing 6 rallies a day. The rallies really just energized Trump. He got so into it. I've never seen any sort of politician have such a party kind of atmosphere and just so intimate with how he speaks from the front. And, I've been to 2 Trump rallies. And Bobby has as well. You've been to one, Sam?
Just one.
It's something else. It is such an amazing feeling when you're in that room with him and he's center and he just controls it, and it's like a shockwave that runs through you. And that's what it seemed to be like at Liberty University. I didn't watch the speech, but that's what I could take away from it.
Yeah, it was great, man. It was really great. And just the way he was comfortable with the audience. It's like you said, you could feel the energy he was giving out and they were giving to him. It was pure inspirational Trump.
Yeah. Bobby, do you want to get in some of the economic stuff? I know you kind of want to go quickly through it.
Yeah, so this is actually really, really important. Important. Yeah, that's a new word I just invented. So, in April, the United States government posted a $182 billion surplus.
Man, I haven't heard surplus.
That means
in a
we
long
brought
time.
in $182 billion more than we spent. And the budget, yeah. And the thing is, if you think about it, people have said that he's reduced the debt by over $100 billion since he came into office. Now, this surplus is not entirely going to be used, and it's not entirely going to lower the debt. But it's going to continuously be lowered even more. And they said that normally in April there is a surplus. So this isn't entirely like, oh my God, there's a surplus. There's normally a surplus in April, but this one was significantly higher than most of them. So that's good news.
Yeah, tremendous stuff. What's this stuff about Apple that you have here?
Yeah, and the next thing I wanted to go to was this is just more of just a sign of the times and a good economy. Apple's market value has now passed $800 billion for the first time. And obviously, Apple is the largest company in the world by market share. But this was just kind of them continuously growing and passing just a threshold that has never been passed by anyone before, the $800 billion mark. And Apple might easily be the first $1 trillion company. And I know you were mentioning earlier before the episode that that's bigger than the economies of some countries.
Yeah.
Or the GDPs of some countries, especially.
A lot of countries, really.
And that's just one company that provides, a lot of good
iPhones,
iPads, iMacs, all that stuff. And another good sign of a good economy is the market has this thing called a fear gauge, which is pretty much almost like a poll that they do of different
it's kind of like economic
confidence type indicators, and it's at a low right now, and the last time it was this low was 1993. So we're talking that people have not had this much faith in the economy in like 24 years. That's how good it is right now. And that's definitely something that, you can absolutely attribute that to Trump. Just like, the stock market being high.
He's already had a great influence, and I mean, this is only going to continue at this rate.
And another thing that's continuing is unemployment. And I know that we don't really like
how they calculate
for unemployment. But that being said, there's some stuff that you can't debate. And that's the fact that the number of people claiming weekly unemployment is at its lowest level since 1988. It hasn't been that low in almost 30 years.
Big league winning.
And keep in mind, there were less people in the United States then, too. So as a percentage-wise, absolutely, the economy is outstanding right now because of Trump.
And I mean, we've seen overachieving job growth every single month of this administration so far.
Yeah, and he needs it because they don't give him a honeymoon period. I mean, I think a lot of people were commenting, I was a child, y'all might not even have been born, but
No.
that Reagan, his policies took about 2 years to feel. Trump needs it expedited because he gets no honeymoon period.
Absolutely.
But he doesn't need it looks like. Great stuff.
Like I said, we mentioned this earlier. The media and Democrats, they're all focused about, Russia, 2 scoops of ice cream. You know what regular, everyday Americans care about? They care about the economy. They care about their 401ks. They want to make sure their kids have a better off life than they do. And
I mean, they do polling, and the economy is always the number one most important thing for people.
Dems are missing it, though. They're really missing that part of their message.
And I mean, CNN doesn't report about it, so they don't realize how great it is at the moment.
And I hate to be like a Debbie Downer here, but the number one thing that can derail this entire economy right now is if Trump doesn't get tax reform passed. So that's something he really needs to just beat into the brains of Congress, that they need to get that thing through.
I know he's aiming for August or September, and, we talked about this. Have we talked about this, Bill?
We've mentioned it.
Yeah, we've talked about. We haven't gone as in depth as I know we could potentially go, especially with what you know about taxes. But this is a great tax reform bill. I've seen only good things about it. I just really hope the Democrats can get behind something. I don't really like this obstructionism they're doing at all, but if they could get behind this, that's all they need to do for me for a while.
I think at least some of the vulnerable Democrats for 2018 can get on board with it. Because if they don't vote for this and the economy's doing good, they're gone.
But I mean, we can still nuclear this if we want to.
We need to nuclear this. We need to nuclear everything,
we
especially
should be doing that all the time, yeah.
Yeah, we should. There shouldn't be anything that we don't nuclear at this point.
Yeah.
But one thing that we don't have to worry about nuclearing is the oil. Now, we've talked about oil over the last month or so.
A lot.
And if you've noticed, gas prices, at least here in Texas, they've gone down about 20 cents in the last week. Because when I drove down to San Antonio last week, it was about $2.20 here, and in San Antonio it was about $2.15. When I was driving back up today, it was $1.99. We're back under $2 again. And obviously Texas has some of the cheaper gas in the country for obvious reasons. But the reason I bring that up is North Dakota has a booming oil industry right now. And obviously, Trump signed the executive order to approve the Keystone Pipeline and that sort of stuff. But that's not the only pipelines that are being built right now.
There's a lot.
And but there is one other big pipeline. I'm not able to find the name. I apologize for that. But it just got finished in in North Dakota. And because of that single pipeline, the oil industry up in North Dakota, which has been booming, is booming even more. And they said that just how good it is the cost to get a barrel of oil can be reduced by $3 a barrel because of this pipeline. So if you translate
Jesus.
that out to the market, that means the market price of oil might drop about $1.50.
And if you've been watching the global kind of market for oil, I know OPEC is trying to limit the supply at the
Yeah,
moment.
because we're having so much more drilling and whatnot. The supply of oil is definitely increasing because of policies of this current administration. But OPEC is not happy about that at all.
Which, I mean, at this point, we are looking to produce more oil than OPEC.
We have more oil in the ground under the United States than we do in the entire Middle East.
We should take advantage of that. We shouldn't be sending our money to, like, terrorist regimes.
I mean, not only that, but they said that, because of the fact that, some smaller areas in North Dakota, there's so much job increase there, too. There's one city that has 500 more jobs this year than last year, and that was a tiny town that's just kind of come out of nowhere. Like, they talked about, like, the oil cities that popped up in the 1800s in Texas. Like, that's now North Dakota.
Yeah. Sam, how are you feeling about the economy at the moment?
Well, I guess with my feelers, it feels pretty good. Everything you guys have been saying, I feel is really accurate. Haven't really had to travel out of town, but just got a new car for my birthday.
Oh, sweet.
So I might have to try that out.
Definitely won't be charged as much for gas as it used to be, so.
Yeah, that's always good.
And, I just want to also point out one more thing about just how efficient drilling is nowadays. They said that a couple of years ago, it took 20 days to build and drill a well. Now it only takes 12. So we can start putting these things up, boom, 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 all over the place in, much, much faster time, almost half the time as we did just a couple of years ago. So that's going to get even more efficient as time goes on as well.
Yeah. I want to get into some immigration stuff now. I know we got a lot of immigration stuff to talk about. The first big thing in regards to Texas, us passing that sanctuary bill last week, is the ACLU actually came out and gave like this big Texas travel advisory warning. Did y'all see this?
I thought it was a joke when I first saw it, and then I realized it was real.
Yeah, they have this photo from the ACLU's Twitter, which says, warning, Texas travel advisory. All travelers, including U.S. citizens, should be advised you may encounter illegal arrest, racial profiling, demands to show your papers. The ACLU is pretty much doing the job of the ICE at the moment, getting the illegal aliens out of Texas. It's pretty funny, really.
Yeah, and not only that, but they had the whole like, "Oh, show me your papers" type of claim. But the governor of Texas, Governor Wheels, he even said like, "No, that's not true. Like, we're not forcing people to show them their papers. That's just fear mongering on their part."
Yeah. Sam, do you have any thoughts on this ACLU thing? Did you see it at all?
I think nope. I'm looking at it right now. I think it's gonna be great though for for the Democratic Party when their hyperbole backfires, in the elections. So just let them keep acting crazy.
Not only that, but the ACLU claimed that there's like possible racial profiling. But if you actually read the law specifically prohibits police from racially profiling people, and that's in the law that we just signed.
Yeah.
So the ACLU is they're blatantly lying to people.
I mean, the
that's
ACLU.
that's not hyperbole. Then that's just a lie.
Oh yeah, no, like that's a stated complete 100%. Take the oath on the Bible fact. The ACLU is lying to people right now.
Now, did you see this thing with the ACLU actually saying to a court that Trump's travel ban is unconstitutional because Trump created it, and actually if someone else like Hillary Clinton passed this would be legal?
I see it now.
So, in a federal appeals court on Monday, in the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals, there was Omar C. Jawat of the American Civil Liberties Union. came out and said, because Trump said, oh, we're going to look to end Muslim immigration in the country, that's what made it illegal. That's what made it unconstitutional. Apparently, people that are foreign nationals have constitutional rights. Did you know that? I didn't know that. It's pretty insane that these people actually think that the only thing that makes it illegal is Trump said it. And Trump does it. But I mean, that's how these people act at this point. It's really, really dumb. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Last week we mentioned an article about how hatred of Trump is warping the judiciary, and this is more proof as well. Like, you have a guy who's a senior staff member at the ACLU saying, well, yeah, if someone else did it, it would be legal, but because Trump did it, obviously it's not. You can't have that type of rhetoric going into our court system. Yeah. That's not healthy for the country.
Yeah, I saw some people calling it fake law.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And that is exactly right. That's not good. It's not healthy. These people are wrong. And actually, context, of course there's a lot of one-liner or sound bites you can get off Trump and make him sound really, really bad. But context is really important. And if you go back to the day he said that Donald J. Trump, is calling for
the total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States. He was reading a quote that someone wrote about him. That wasn't him in front of a crowd saying, I'm calling to do this. This was him quoting somebody else. Somebody else wrote that about him, and he was quoting that to make fun of it. And then they took the soundbite. You can read the soundbite and just look at the entire thing.
No, but I also think that was a terrorist attack.
It was after the Orlando shooting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or no, it was after the Paris attacks.
Either Paris, Orlando,
it was Paris. It wasn't
it
Orlando.
San Bernardino. I'm not sure of the date.
It was Paris. I'm 100% sure on that.
So that is what was going on. And the migrant crisis had reached a peak of media coverage. So I'm just saying, I don't know. I don't think it was a joke that he said that. I think that he was actually saying that, and if it was a joke, I'm wrong. But if it was true, I think that the context was that he knew that the immigration system, the refugee immigration system, was causing terrorists to infiltrate.
Well, I'm just saying is the soundbite that's always used of him saying that, that was him quoting something that someone wrote about.
Yeah, that's fake news.
Yeah. And then they're trying to pass it off like that's his actual words when he's just reading off what someone said.
Even then, though, that doesn't matter. That doesn't affect law. Like we've said on this show multiple times, this is completely within Donald J. Trump's ability as president to limit immigration from any country he feels that it has a legitimate, serves a legitimate security risk. And the countries that Donald J. Trump, our president, has set out to protect us from were not countries that he selected. These were countries that Obama said that are security risks. He just did something that Obama set out to say. He went through it, and apparently Donald Trump's the bad guy. It's ridiculous. No one looks at this objectively. I'm really mad that activist judges are able to risk the security of this nation just because it's mean. These people don't have constitutional rights. It doesn't matter. What matters is American lives.
The judiciary honestly needs to be elected. It doesn't need to be, president shouldn't appoint these people. These people need to be, impeached if they do something stupid like that too.
This is a major issue of national security, and it's ridiculous that we even have to put up with this, let alone we're still talking about this. I really hope this goes to the Supreme Court, because we will win.
Oh, absolutely, especially now that Gorsuch is on there.
100%.
Yeah, I have no doubts about that.
But I wanted to get into another thing in regards to sanctuary cities. At the moment, there are 33 states considering now to pass similar laws to what Governor Abbott, Governor Wheels passed last week. Georgia, Indiana, and Mississippi already have similar laws to Texas. But if you look at where these numbers have been in the past, only 4 states looked in 2015 to do this, and only 18 states looked to do this last year. Now we're at 33. the majority of states in the country now want to ban sanctuary cities, and people are realizing how dangerous these cities truly are.
Keep in mind, Trump only won 30 states. So now you have at least 3 blue states
If not
that are
more.
going after it. Yeah.
Which I am 100% pleased with. I want to crack down on every single one of these. Obviously, it's not going to happen in California, but we've already seen Miami, bend the knee and do this. And also Columbus, Ohio has ended being a sanctuary city. And, every single sanctuary city in Texas is now ended. All the officials have said, yeah, I don't agree with this law, but it's not worth going to jail over, so... It's really good news. I'm glad things are happening in that front.
And if you have a lot of states start banning sanctuary cities or at least putting giant penalties on sanctuary cities, and there's improvements because of that, that's another reason why Republicans are going to do really well in the midterms.
Yeah. What's the next thing that you want to get into in immigration? I'm trying to jump around a bit because we're going a little slower this week, it seems.
Well, let's go to the ICE arrests.
Yeah, this is very important.
So... ICE had this nationwide anti-gang operation that they did, which it's actually ICE's largest anti-gang operation to date that they've ever had. And it was a 6-week operation, and I'm trying to see how many states that was in, whatever. But they're specifically going after gangs like MS-13, which we've mentioned on the show before.
Yeah, big illegal alien gangs.
And in total, they arrested almost 1,400 people, many of which were illegal immigrants. Yeah, they said of the arrests, 933 were U.S. citizens and 445 are foreign nationals. And of the total arrests, 280 were solely immigration related. So most of these crimes were not going after people that were just illegals. They're illegals that have committed crime.
Now, just to kind of bring this to our home front here in Texas, Corpus Christi actually had a ton. They arrested 164 gang members in Corpus Christi, ICE. Think about how much safer Corpus Christi is alone, because 164 gang members are now off the streets. It's a weird concept. You let ICE do what they're supposed to do, and we actually make the country safer. I'm very pleased with what's going on. And
how many of those people were illegal?
Of the Corpus Christi ones,
right.
ICE did not actually...
We don't have numbers on that.
Yeah, ICE did not actually release the number of them that were illegal, but they did say which ones were not native born. So that just kind of gives you a general rough idea.
How many was that?
Well, that's what I just said. 900 and something were U.S. citizens, but 380 were foreign born. So at least a good portion of the 380 were illegals.
So they can go back, and the rest can go in jail.
Yeah, I mean, they're not bringing their best.
No.
See, unfortunately, if they had any kids, and those kids were in the L.A. County School District, they'd be safe. Because L.A. County School District just, in a, quote, active non-cooperation, declared itself a sanctuary district for schools. So, if there are any families that have kids that are illegals, the L.A. County School District is not going to deport them.
Yeah. I remember last week reported actually 1 in 8 children in California, I believe it is. I think the whole state as a whole has an illegal alien parent at home. So this is California should just go be a different country. If they don't even want to enforce any laws, not even the education system wants to follow any sort of laws. It's a complete joke. It is a complete joke. I am so sick of this garbage.
Yeah. And I think actually I heard this story, but I'm seeing it linked here. There was a couple of illegal immigrants in Houston who sacrificed a 15-year-old girl to Satan. Did you hear about that?
I think we covered that on the show about 3 weeks ago.
This stuff is crazy.
I remember hearing that story.
Yeah, these stories are crazy, man. I'm just saying the fact that they're saying ICE has its mojo back. I mean, that's only going to be good for the communities. Way to go. Good job, guys. Stay safe.
I kind of want to quickly go into 2 big stories that happened this week as far as illegal immigrant crime that was just audacious. Now, the first one I want to get into, there was an illegal alien who killed 2 doctors in Boston, and he was sentenced to 364 days in jail. One short of deportation. He's allowed to kill 2 doctors in a bank, and he'd been convicted of robbing the same bank in 2014.
Can't we just give the guy the death penalty and be over with it?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind if this guy was dead. Like, I don't give a shit. This guy should at least go back, though. And another big illegal alien crime that happened is there was an illegal alien who had been deported 15 times, who was drunk driving outside of Disneyland, and he crashed into a car, and now there's a 6-year-old boy that has severe head injuries and had to go through 2 surgeries just to try to survive. I don't even want to talk about this, but it's important.
Yeah.
Because people just brush over this. They act as though they're not doing anything bad in this country.
And they can't even show his face on TV because of the law.
They cover this stuff up so
it's
much.
It's crazy, though. I mean, they try to say, they say that illegals have more rights than us. Well, in a lot of ways, they do have more
this
rights.
guy only has a 364-day jail sentence for killing 2 people.
Yeah. The system is super flawed, and all this chanting of build bridges, not walls, and anti-Trump because, he's anti-immigrant is ridiculous, and it's actually getting people hurt and killed.
This isn't even good for the legal immigrants that live here.
Exactly.
That they have to be associated with this crime, and they are also, at risk of being killed by these freaking criminals. Disgusting. But I kind of want to go quickly into this border wall thing. I know, Bobby, you know a lot about this.
Yeah, so the government is moving into the second phase of border wall planning. Now, we reported back in March that a bunch of companies had their proposals that they wanted to submit to the government. Well, the government has now gone through those proposals, and they're narrowing it down to like 5 finalists.
Yeah, it's 5.
And they want each of those 5 finalists to build a prototype of their wall out in the California desert, of which then they can, physically see the design rather than just having like a model of it. So from there, they'll be able to move on and then actually start building the wall. So I know a lot of people are complaining that, we haven't gotten any wall built and it's taking too long. But I think, we're moving along at a good pace. This is not something that you're just going to be able to start overnight. It takes time, and frankly, I'm happy with... I think it could absolutely be going faster, but it's not like we're not doing it.
No, I'm very happy.
And even Trump was interviewed by Judge Pirro on Saturday night, and she specifically asked him, she said, "Are you going to build that wall?" And Trump got a big grin on his face and says, "We are going to build that wall, absolutely." Is there a question about it? So we're building the wall.
I believe the prototypes, they require them to be 2.5 miles in length. So they really get a good feel of what these walls will look like, and they can test it out themselves, how secure it really is. And you also have to remember just what these wall provisions all have. We've talked about this several times. I believe we went into a lot of depth like 2 months ago. The wall requires, as far as like penetration, breaking it, you can't like go through it with even like heavy equipment. It takes at least 4 hours, so they'll be able to notice. There's security cameras on all these walls. They're underground sensors, so if they're gonna go under it, I hear so much, they're just gonna tunnel under it. They'll easily know if someone's tunneling under it. It has like it has like this slick surface on the side facing Mexico that makes it like near impossible to climb up. There's no way even like ladders would be able to go up against this wall.
It's also 30 feet tall, so.
Yeah. This wall will work very well. If you want to doubt this wall, be my guest. This wall worked very well. I've mentioned on the show before the Israel wall, the West Bank barrier. After they built that wall, the Palestinian attacks into Israel went down 95%. Once illegal aliens see this wall and realize how freaking good this wall is and how everyone's been lied to about, this wall won't work, they're not going to come.
Yeah. Well, because I mean, Trump's rhetoric can only last so long, honestly, because we're gonna have the pendulum's gonna swing this way or that. I mean, he can only be president for 8 years max, anyways. So the wall just it goes beyond policy. The next president can't do anything about it. So it's gonna be a good thing.
Oh, speaking of walls, this is actually a good lead into what we're doing in the midweek show. The midweek mini podcast. Do you want to talk about this some, Bobby?
Yes, so this week on the Mini Week podcast, we're going to be having on a friend of mine who actually lives in the McAllen, Texas area, which is right down there near the border. So she's a big Trump supporter, and she knows a lot about immigration, and especially the wall. She's a huge supporter of wanting the wall built. So she'll be on our show, and I'm looking forward to seeing what she has to say.
You actually said she's testified in like town hall meetings on
That's
the
correct.
necessity of the wall.
Yes.
I'm extremely excited to hear what she has to say this Wednesday. I think it's going to be a really good episode. If you want to learn a bunch about the border and the wall, and I don't know a whole lot because I've only been to the border like twice, but
And she's someone who has first-hand experience with this stuff day in and day out.
I mean, you said like her church is only 2 miles from the border.
Yeah, there's like, I've looked up that stuff on like Google Maps and whatnot. And you can see like the border is right there near like the cities that she's always hanging around at.
So that's going to be a great episode. But let's get into kind of the last stuff we have for national news and really I want to quickly get into current year college craziness because I know we got a lot of craziness to get into. So, do you know about this world temperature plummeting stuff?
Yes. So this is really talking about Arctic ice. And if you don't really know, a lot of people will talk about how like the Arctic ice has been melting, but at the same time, the Antarctic ice has been expanding to near record levels. And this article is pretty much talking about how world temperatures are just actually going down right now. And unfortunately, the website is thetelegraph.co.uk, so we're not able to look at the full article. But
yeah,
I've
they
seen
have a paywall.
Yeah, but I've seen some other stuff about it. And even though 2016 was declared, quote unquote, the hottest year on record, they said that the last winter was actually really, really cold. But anyways, it's pretty much just talking about how since the global temperatures are actually kind of coming down just a little bit off of that, you should start to see Arctic ice starting to expand again, which is, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
It kind of defeats the whole, global warming narrative.
I know, next to nothing, no lie about global warming, climate change.
I mean, I'm the first to admit it. I do believe in climate change. Now, I don't think humans affect it as much as people say. A lot of it has to do with the sun, and I do have evidence that I can use to back that up. But yeah, global warming, though, totally fake.
And, as far as, carbon emissions go, it is not a problem we're going to be able to solve if China's not on board, if India's not on board. These countries like China and India, which have huge populations compared to us, are a lot more heavy in contributing to that. So if you really want to make a change in the world as far as this goes, you have to get foreign countries involved. I've always believed, and I've heard Ben Shapiro talk about this before, if we're going to solve this problem, we need to figure out from a technological aspect how we're going to do that. And, I'm sorry, I lost my point. Scratch that.
It's all good. Let's just move on.
There's way too much stuff to get into. I kind of want to skip this pinata stuff. It's not so important. But let's talk about this Seattle mayor. So there's recently the Seattle mayor who wants to put a tax on diet soda because affluent whites drink it. Sam, what do you think of that?
Well, I think it's about time. I think too many white people have been, shoving diet sodas down the brown man's throat, and, good for them.
You're joking with that,
I
right?
have no idea what to say about that, honestly.
It's ridiculous, right?
It's
He
real
sees
news, but it shouldn't be.
He sees it as a way to, kind of punish whites for white privilege.
Right.
And I believe this guy's white as well.
I guess I don't believe in white privilege, so for me, it's hard for me to take these things seriously.
Yeah.
Because I kind of debate white people when they feel guilty about being white, and so that's where I'm coming from. I don't understand it. So I wouldn't want anybody saying I have brown privilege, although I do understand people talking about affirmative action and privilege like that.
Originally, he wanted to impose a tax on all sugary drinks at 2 cents per ounce, which
Jesus.
they thought would bring in $16 million a year just from that tax alone. But then his staff told him that it would disproportionately affect minorities. So then they revised it to only be diet drinks because white people disproportionately drink more diet drinks than other people. So that's why they wanted to just do a diet, because it would affect whites more than people of color.
That's freaking ridiculous.
But it wouldn't just affect white people. I mean, you know what I mean?
It would affect white people more.
You're still affecting other people, though. That's the ridiculous part about it.
Keep in mind, this is the same Seattle mayor that's facing accusations from 4 men that say he paid to have sex with them when they were like minors and stuff.
Yeah, he's definitely.
Oh, the Seattle mayor?
It's the same guy.
Oh, wait, why isn't he out of office yet?
Have you been to Seattle?
Oh,
It's like
wow.
90% Democrat. You think they're going to get rid of one of their own no matter
See, in
what?
that sense, I'm kind of okay that these white liberals are being punished with this diet soda tax. As long as you're not doing that to, like,
They
people.
eat themselves. Well, I don't know if this is a news thing, but they are eating themselves. Amy Schumer, you heard people are on the left are upset about her new movie. Did you hear that?
Her newest movie that came out last weekend, I
Her and
think.
Goldie Hawn have a new movie, and I'm not even sure the title. But apparently because
Snatched.
Snatched.
Don't ask me how I know
Because
that.
she's a gun advocate or whatever you want to call it.
Gun control?
Gun control advocate, right. She had a scene in there with some guns, and she cut it all out of the whole movie because she didn't want to offend anybody. Releases the movie, it still offends people because the bad guys are brown-skinned people. So it's like no matter what they do, no matter how far they bend, the social justice warriors can't get enough. So
Well, speaking of that, I saw, I think it was on IMDb, that like the ratings for that movie were extremely low. Yeah, I have it right here. So IMDb is usually a pretty good indicator of how well a movie is on a 10-point rating. It's got a 3.0 out of 10.
wow.
So
She was going to be the star of the Barbie live action movie, but they canceled that.
no one would have gone to see it.
Could you imagine, like, Amy Schumer as, like, Barbie?
Even if she had the body of Barbie, I don't even see her face. Like looking at, I've seen other actresses that kind of have the face of Barbie, if you want to say it that way.
Yeah, Amy Schumer is super gross.
Amy Schumer is
Yeah.
the last person I would think of,
Yeah.
if I wanted to do it. Yeah, even on Rotten Tomatoes, it's got a 36%, which is actually higher than IMDb if you think about it, using that kind of scale.
Which, in a sense, is pretty good because there's pushback against these insane Hollywood liberals. I think we're really seeing that a lot in the culture. I mean, I 100% boycott Hollywood movies. I don't even watch movies, but it's great to see. Let's go into some of this New Orleans stuff because this statue stuff has been really huge in the last week. Y'all have been seeing this Confederate monument stuff being taken down, right?
Unfortunately, yes.
Not too much, no.
Really?
Mm-mm.
All across the country, there's been pushes to remove Confederate statues, especially in New Orleans, but also in other states. Now, for me, I take a lot of offense to this, really. I'm not even a Southerner, but if you think about it, the people that suffered through the Civil War, the Southerners, the culture that actually felt that they were so separate from the North that they were to be their own country. In a sense, they were. They have to struggle through Reconstruction, immensely harming them, these people. And they still, just so they can be remembered through history, scrap through enough money to make these monuments so they can't be forgotten. And now, us in the future are demolishing their history and trying to erase these people from the land. This is the history of the United States, and we're trying to decimate it, get rid of it like we're ISIS. It is disgusting to me.
Yeah.
And, there was speaking of disgusting, there was a quote that one of those people said. I'm not sure who said it, but I know it was someone involved with the process of taking it down. They said, "We're not erasing history, we're correcting history."
It's ridiculous.
It's disgusting. You're correct. I do remember hearing one thing about this. I'm not sure if it's this New Orleans one, but somewhere where they're removing statues like this, the mayor was going to actually make a profit because they were moving the statues to a museum that he could make a profit on with those statues that he took down from the public area. But I don't know if that was this, or did y'all hear anything about that?
I don't know about that.
I haven't heard that.
Okay, so somebody was just talking about that, but either way, I'm just looking at this article that you guys had here, and that is, I'm with you 100%, man. It is erasing history, because if you don't learn
It's
from
erasing
history,
American history.
if you don't learn from it, then you really repeat it. You might repeat it in different ways, but you repeat it. You get people who are in power who take advantage of your ignorance the way that they did before because they know you didn't learn your lesson. So, I disagree with it. I think you're right. It's just like ISIS tearing down the history of Christians in the Middle East.
Yeah. And, the big place for this was in New Orleans. There was a lot of people that went out in New Orleans to try to defend these. I know a lot of these statues in New Orleans did get taken down. I know people that actually went to New Orleans to try to counter that. I think Bay Stickman was also there. But there are photos in New Orleans of the deputy mayor of New Orleans riding shotgun with Antifa. Antifa! The radical, violent, leftist, terroristic organization. It's the same thing we've seen in Berkeley. Public officials in bed with Antifa. It's absolutely disgusting what we see in these places. I don't really have any more to say about this, though. Do you, Bobby or Sam?
I just want to say, one of the statues that was taken down was put up in 1911. It had been up for 106 years. So... that's just something to think about.
Yeah. Do you want to go into the Chicago stuff?
Yeah, I think you should mention it.
Yeah, so recently Chicago put out, and if you don't know who the mayor of Chicago is, it's Rahm Emanuel. They recently put out this notice to their police officers that there is increased use of gang members using rifles with body-piercing rounds from assault rifle style weapons. Now, we got this off the Wall Street Journal, which is one of the worst places ever, but they're still reporting on it, and they use a paywall. But just knowing that they put out this message, and they're not doing anything about this violent crime that's happening in Chicago. We've seen the murder rates explode.
I mean, Trump, back, I think this was either right before or right after the inauguration, he was talking about how the murder rate in Chicago and the crime rate was just completely out of control, and he was thinking about sending in federal authorities to deal with it. I support that. These are problems that affect everybody.
Yeah.
And that's stuff that you can actually solve. You need to do everything you can to get rid of it.
I talked to a guy from Chicago and he laughed because he thought that it was not as bad as everybody was making it sound. And he was black. But, I mean, if that has anything to do with it, I believe it might, because I think that most of the deaths in Chicago are happening in majority black.
Are black people a majority of people that get killed?
See, he knew those neighborhoods, the ones that you can't go into,
right.
But he didn't live there.
Right.
And he was a truck driver, so he was coming through San Marcos, and that's, we just were having a quick chat, and I was asking him about Chicago, getting his perspective. Again, like I said, he thought it was being blown out of proportion. I don't think so. I think he's wrong. I think that it would be good for Trump to put troops. I mean, it's not like it's going to do martial law in the whole city, because sure, there's a lot of areas of Chicago that are on the right side of the tracks, and there's no violence, but there's people using armor-piercing rounds. It's a war zone, and they're ready for war in those areas.
I mean, if you think about it, the Chicago area has something like, 3 million people or something that live there?
Right.
And we're talking about a very, very concentrated neighborhoods and areas that, because they're part of the city, that's what the reason why the murder rate and stuff is near the top of the country. 90% of Chicago is probably a very nice place to live, and everyone's going to be like you and me, and there's not going to be hardly any crime at all.
Exactly.
But when you have these areas that are just causing this so bad, you need to deal with them in any way you possibly can.
And Chicago is a sanctuary city, and Rahm Emanuel's come out and said, we're going to fight this to the very end. And as we just said earlier in the program, ICE has been going through and getting rid of gang members left and right. But Chicago doesn't work with ICE. the Rahm Emanuel doesn't care about getting out illegal gangs in Chicago, and that really says something about this person, Rahm Emanuel, where it's more important to protect these illegal alien gangs than help your own citizens. They haven't done anything about this stuff in Chicago.
Well, I mean, there is one good thing that can happen if you're a gang member in Chicago and you get arrested.
Yeah, this is one a little more funny story,
I'll
a
let you
little more
cover it.
upbeat. So, there is a prison in Chicago that now allows prisoners to order pizza to their jail cells. Sam or Bobby, do you have any thoughts just initially on
So
that?
you can get a Chicago-style
Yeah,
pizza
yeah,
in Chicago
yeah.
in the prison?
Straight to your cell.
I mean, I'm looking at this thing and it says that the price of the pizza is only $5, and that's like including delivery. Shoot, that's cheaper than it is for me normally.
Yeah, it's pretty good pizza price, really.
Like, shoot, you can get you can get a bed, electricity. Like most prisons have like internet access now and TV, and like a workout center. And shoot, now you can have pizza delivered to your cell. Like that's the life, man.
Yeah, it's not really. I mean, you're in jail. It's not that great, but I mean, pizza.
Better than jail food.
Yeah, you can order pizza. I mean, personally, I kind of don't mind if they're getting pizza. I mean, you work these prison jobs where you barely get any money. If you're saving up for pizza, at least you're not spending that on drugs or anything.
They're actually being cheated out of it. You know why?
Why?
Because the photos that they released are all thin crust pizzas. Those are
Oh.
New York style.
They're not
Now
deep
we're
dish
not talking
Chicago.
deep dish Chicago style pizzas. So, you're not getting what you're paying for, man.
I think we need an investigation of that. Then that's a ripoff.
like that is an impeachable offense to whoever made that decision.
Probably
Not the ice cream. We gotta impeach the people over pizza.
We have to look at the other Pizzagate.
The other Pizzagate.
I blame Putin. What does he have against Chicago pizza? We'll find out. Let's get an investigation going.
Putin probably likes New York style pizza better. That's why.
That must be it.
I don't even know if they have pizza in Russia. I don't know. But let's get into this next thing. So, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson has announced that running for president is a real possibility for him.
Do it. Do it.
He came in as the highest paid actor in 2016 at $65 million he made in 2016. And I mean, he's pretty much now in like every movie that's being made. So everyone loves The Rock. Which I don't want him to run for president because I want him to keep making movies. Like that's a selfish reason.
Yeah, that would take away from his movie schedule.
Like everyone loves him. Everyone wants to see his movies. There's a reason why like movies he's in are very popular. There's a reason why he made $65 million in 2016, and it wasn't because of running for president.
I don't know. I think it's just an example, though, of how Hollywood still doesn't understand Trump. Like, they think that he won because he was a celebrity, and, like, that was it. Like, just, you had all these celebrities all of a sudden rethinking their ambitions for the White House, even though their career was in Hollywood versus politics or versus other kinds of community-oriented careers or community service type careers. Now they're rethinking, just like Dwayne, just like Kanye, just like Oprah, just like all these other celebrities who, in my opinion, they're really just jealous, bottom line, that Trump was able to pull it off. Because break the celebrity glass ceiling, if you to say, because he wasn't elected to any office. Even though Reagan was elected as president, he was a governor before. So he really was the only in our history to go from celebrity to a president, and they don't have the credentials in other parts of their lives. Maybe Oprah does. I don't think Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson has those kinds of credentials that even go close to Trump. So when I'm saying do it, I just think it would be a lesson in celebrities and how weak their arguments really are. I'd like to see him try. Like, I don't think he has a chance.
Isn't The Rock also supposedly conservative?
Yeah, he's a Republican.
Oh, he's a Republican?
I've been seeing articles where the Democrats, especially that Hill article, I think we talked about that last week, the week before, where they're saying, oh yeah, The Rock would be a great opponent for Trump. But the thing is, The Rock voted for Donald Trump.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Well, okay, I didn't know he was a Republican. But either way,
yeah, he's one of
Arnold
those
was a
rare
Republican,
ones.
And he was coming out for Kasich during the primary, and even that him and Donald were having tweet battles after the election.
Are you talking about Arnold Schwarzenegger?
Yeah, Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's a Republican. So I'm just, I mean, obviously there's a never Trump attitude that kind of is not gonna easily go away, but it doesn't matter because he's the president. So they're on board in a way. But I'm just saying, okay, so Dwayne wants to challenge him.
Maybe.
I mean, again, I don't really take it too seriously because I don't think he has. I see him doing speeches. I'm sure he can talk really, really good off the cuff as well. But I just don't see his toolbox the same as Trump. Trump is an anomaly.
I don't want to see it personally.
No.
I mean, I like pro wrestling. I don't really like movies, and like The Rock, he's a Hall of Fame legend in WWE. But like his experience as being a movie actor and fake fighting, like I understand Trump's like appeal to where like, oh, he actually run this big successful corporation from essentially like a very humble beginning, flipping apartments to this huge global name. The Rock not so much.
No.
He doesn't have that skill set.
Like, The Rock is most known for just being buff and charismatic and good looking.
So, but then if he is such a supporter of Trump, why would he even consider running?
I mean, if you actually read the interview, he was almost laughing it off when he said that. Because he was like, well, if a lot of people wanted me to do it, maybe I'll do it, but I don't know, whatever.
The thing is, though, if he ran, he's so well liked. Like, I do think he'd get a ton of support just for being The Rock.
Yeah.
I think he would win several states in primaries against Trump.
Which would be crazy.
Yeah.
You think so? I don't know if he.
I mean, not every, like, I mean, if you think about it, there's probably a lot of, I mean, yeah, you're talking, primaries are a lot different than the general, but I think he might get, a chunk of support.
I don't doubt that he gets support.
I think
Maybe even in
I
every
think it would.
state, but it's just that is.
This is the same thing though that they were saying with Donald Trump.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Although I think that Trump has a way of adapting. That if The Rock can do that, then I mean we'll see. But
now The Rock, he's in his 40s. If he waited for 2024. Maybe, really.
Hey, if he's a Republican, and if it works, and depending on what his platform is, we'll see.
If anything, what I think Trump needs to do is during his re-election, get The Rock on his side to do speeches for him. Because the Republican Party had almost no like Hollywood celebrity support at all. If you can get one of the biggest star in Hollywood right now is The Rock.
Now, if The Rock run for Congress or Senate, I definitely think he'd win.
Oh yeah,
just with that name. I mean, that's how a lot of people voted for Donald Trump. Admittedly, they just know who he was.
Yeah.
When you're getting down to the lowest information voter. But, I can't really blame him for creating such a big name. The Rock is an icon.
Like, people don't even know him as his name. They know him as The Rock. So.
Yeah. I know you wanted to talk about this Nancy Pelosi thing. Do you want to get into this, Bobby?
This is another thing when I saw it, I thought it was like a fake news joke. Until I realized it was real. So, Nancy Pelosi and the Dalai Lama got together for some event, and he prayed over her. And he prayed over her, telling her that he wanted to get rid of her negative attitude by praying. Like, I think that's just hilarious. That even, this Buddhist monk from Tibet is wanting Nancy Pelosi to shed her negative attitude.
Nancy Pelosi has gone completely insane ever since Donald Trump won. I mean, to the point to where she doesn't even remember who the president is.
Yeah, she's called him President Bush in a couple of interviews.
Sam, what are your thoughts on Nancy Pelosi at the moment?
Well, I'm like you. I'm just kind of laughing that this is even a thing. Obviously, I agree with the Dalai Lama. She's got some negativity there, but that's pretty much all I got to say about that. I mean, it's just pretty much hilarious.
Yeah, but in the last big news that we wanted to get into this in the national news segment, before we get into the ever so loved current year college craziness, is the growth of heroin in the United States. I think you brought this up, Bobby.
Yeah, this is one of the things that Trump actually even mentioned during the campaign. Was that the heroin epidemic in this country is like at record levels and hardly anyone actually talks about it. Like that's one of the biggest drug epidemics facing this country right now.
Yeah, opioids have actually increased exponentially.
And because of that, that's making the cartels even stronger as well. Because obviously, we know them for like marijuana and cocaine, but now like you're moving into heroin as well. And I mean, obviously they've been doing that for a long time, but since that's a growing business, it's only making it, even worse.
Like if you look at the infograph on the Bloomberg article that we have up in 2010, as far as percentage of fatal overdoses, heroin only constituted around 7%. Now it is 25% as of 2015. That's probably increased.
Wow. I don't know if I might disagree with y'all on this, but my feelings on it, I hate heroin. but I guess I have more libertarian type
viewpoints.
Yeah, that I think heroin should be legal. I think that would help get rid of the black market that exists for drugs. I think all drugs should be legal, and that might even stop the crime that goes along with it. Well, as far as the deaths, I mean, people are going to kill themselves. People kill themselves with alcohol, and that's legal. So it's a tough situation.
Yeah, I differ on this. I used to be libertarian, and I used to believe that, but I'm 100% fine with keeping heroin illegal. Mm-hmm. I believe that marijuana should be legal, and I've partaked in it a couple times. I don't really care if marijuana is still legal. It's not hard to get, but I definitely don't think like meth or heroin should be illegal at all. What are your thoughts, Bobby?
Well, I was gonna say, I'm not sure if it was you that showed me this, but there was a video of like this. I think it was a Walmart in like West Virginia. That was one of those towns that's really being hit hard by the heroin epidemic, and they said they're getting like multiple overdoses in their bathrooms every night of the week, to the point where like they said one week there was like 7 people in one night tried overdose in their bathroom of their Walmart. Like that's a definite problem, and you can make it legal if you want, but that's still going to affect that community, and that's something that they don't want to have to deal with either.
See, yeah, that's similar to what the point I make, and I've been pushed back against this with libertarians often, and I'm not a libertarian anymore, so I'm 100% comfortable with shitting on libertarianism a little bit. Like, I think it's kind of good when people are on heroin go to jail. I think you wouldn't really solve a lot of problems if you made this. I don't think you'd solve as many problems as you'd think. If these people were openly, freely just getting heroin on the streets, you'd see people committing these crimes, even if it was more available. I used to have a roommate that did meth. I had a roommate that did meth last year. He committed multiple robberies just to get money to pay for meth. I mean, people that are taking these hard drugs, even if you made it legal, I mean, they're gonna consume the stuff to the point where they're gonna need more money. I know there's studies in criminal justice that people don't really talk about much, but it's pretty demonstrable in some instances that if you did legalize it, there would be criminals on the street or you'd have people on the street that would commit crimes. And in that sense, I do think it protects people.
Yeah, I guess, but I guess my thing is that you have to try to protect the most people. And I think that you actually end up hurting more people by having this black market existing. Because in the end, these are just people who need help. I'm talking about the users. Now, the reason, but the bad part of society comes from the drug dealers who they don't give a fuck, and they are going into these communities knowing which are the most vulnerable. So if you legalized it, you would take away that, you would hit the drug dealers where it hurts in their pocketbook. And again, that's never gonna happen.
Does it really make drug dealers go away though?
Oh no. My cousin is I don't know, I guess whatever. But my cousin actually sells marijuana in Colorado. He'd been doing it far longer than it's been legal, and he still does it to this day. So there's a black market, right?
Even in a legal state.
Even in a legal state, it's because people want competition. So he offers competition to the dispensaries by offering lower prices on equal quality. Yeah, you're not getting it. You're getting it because he grows it in his basement, but you're still technically getting it on the black market. But the effects on society of legalizing it are good. You know what I mean? There's no more of this.
In some senses, I mean, I'm 100% for the legalization of marijuana, but there has been an increase in fatalities due to
Yeah, I read
smoking
about
marijuana.
that too. Yeah, but there's also been an increase in exaggeration or hyperbole or fake news over there, because when I went to Denver, there was a news report that this guy ate an edible, a chocolate bar, and killed his wife, and they made that connection that the reason he murdered his wife was because of an edible. I don't see that as a connection. But, that's with it being legal, there's all kinds of things you can connect.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'm going to be in Denver, in the Denver area in August. And when I come back, I will tell you guys my ideas on that.
Your ideas on this.
Please do.
We'll have some firsthand experience.
As far as like getting rid of the criminal market, now I've looked up the price of what legal marijuana is in Colorado, and I know what the prices are in Texas. Now, an eighth in Colorado is $45. An eighth in Texas is still $45.
Yeah.
I don't think it would really affect prices so much.
No, he barely can afford to be under, but if you have enough quantity, you can be under. And the dispensaries don't have any incentive to try to offer you lower than what's.
They have a lot of
value.
taxes and regulations on them as well.
That's
true.
True.
And like Enzo had mentioned, there's a lot of people that do commit crimes and whatnot to get the money to pay for it. And even if it was legal, they're still not going to have the money to pay for it. That's the stuff that you're not going to get rid of. It's not like just by making it legal, it's going to get rid of all the crime. There's still going to be a heavy portion that still exists and will continue to.
Yeah. I know a lot of people that will disagree with me on keeping meth and like heroin illegal, but as someone that's been around a lot of people that do meth and heroin, I'm fine doing that.
I don't know. I think it's there's a spiritual problem. I'm not trying to get more spiritual than political, but there's a problem with people who need help. So I just don't see like the criminality in the same way of like a violent crime or even stealing. Now stealing, that's still stealing. But if you're just using and then you go to jail for it, I mean, like, come on now. Anyway.
Yeah. Let's get into current year college craziness though.
The racist, sexist, homophobic, xenophobic. You're fucking a white male!
The assumption that women are naturally better caregivers is part of patriarchy.
Die, cis, scum.
You will not divide us! You will not divide us! You will not divide us! You will not divide us!
It's time for some current year college craziness.
Man, every single time I hear that little soundbite, it gets me so hyped for this segment. It's always one of the most fun ones to do, especially having the inside of being a college student. There's so many people in the world that just don't know. They don't know. So I always feel like this is one of the most important segments to do, even though it's usually pretty funny. So the first thing that we have up is this Berkeley College Republicans thing. I know you put this up, Bobby, right?
Yes. So, we all know about the first, second, and third battles of Berkeley that occurred. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that, Berkeley, UC Berkeley is one of the most liberal colleges in the entire country. But there is still a Berkeley Republicans group on campus. And a lot of people see that as like an oxymoron. But they still exist. And life for them is very, very hard. Because, a lot of attention gets shown to Berkeley when Antifa shows up and right-wing people show up to counter Antifa. But even when the right-wing people leave and Antifa leaves, there still exists this persecution on campus for college Republicans that are on that campus. And these people are attacked, all the time. They're persecuted by the campus. They're persecuted by their peers. It's not an easy life for them. And it only gets harder as situations get even worse. And the article that we're reading is from the New York Times, which normally is fake news, but this is a pretty good article. And it's pretty much saying that, they're living in fear on their own college campus. And that's crazy to think about.
Now, as someone that has openly supported Donald Trump on campus at Texas State, and obviously I've not experienced the kind of oppression that people in Berkeley have experienced, but I have had a lot of pushback, and I have been pushed around and threatened a couple times, and really that only made me even a stronger supporter of Donald Trump and made me support him publicly even more so. It made me more willing to put on that MAGA hat and walk around town. I think in the same way, as fearful as these Berkeley college students are at the moment, it really makes you believe in the thing that you're behind if these crazy lunatics are so adamant about stopping you. It must really mean that you're doing something right. In my eyes, at least.
Now, I mean, obviously, their college Republicans group is it's not that big for obvious reasons.
Yeah, of course.
But it still exists, and these are our people, and our people are being oppressed.
And no one should have to be in fear just because they're part of a college political group at all. I don't wish that upon the college Democrats at Texas State. I hate the socialist alternative at Texas State, but I don't want them to be threatened at Texas State for their political beliefs.
It doesn't help anybody when groups feel threatened, but I think this is more. I think this gives more weight to the theory that the indoctrination that's in our educational system is becoming dangerous. It's becoming the whole thing with the guy hitting the dude in the head with a bike lock.
Yeah, Berkeley.
These people having drinks thrown at them, being spit on. I saw this lady ask, who was it? Was it? Okay, it was on Van Jones on CNN. Arnold Schwarzenegger. It was Arnold Schwarzenegger, and she was a California Republican, right? And she was saying, Mr. Governor, they were having a little town hall. It was on Van Jones, the Messy Truth. It's a show on CNN that he does, and his special guest was Arnold Schwarzenegger. And so they take questions from the audience, and she says, "Mr. Schwarzenegger, I get spit on. I get spit on all the time. What can I do?" That was her question. Like, how do I stop from getting spit on? Like, that's a felony in some ways. You know what I mean? That's gross.
It is assault. Yes.
Yeah, it's considered
gross.
assault.
And the indoctrination is so deep that people in public think it's okay. This is not happening from the Trump supporter side to them. It's them to us, and it gets completely muted in the media. It's bad.
Yeah, it's kind of strange that the only media that even reports on that kind of stuff is alternative media, ourselves. But I think it's interesting that you bring up the bike lock thing. That's in reference to what happened at the third battle of Berkeley. Now, the guy that did it, who hit a Trump supporter over the head with the bike lock, was doxxed. 4chan figured out who it was, and it turned out it was a professor at Berkeley.
Eric Clapton. That's his name.
Literally, when these college Republicans talk about, we're under threat, we live in fear, the very professors which teach them are very likely to be the ones that want to kill them. That guy could have very likely been killed by getting a bike lock hit over his head.
Yeah, you can look back at the footage. It hit him in the forehead just above his eye. If the guy had even been looking up at him, it could have hit him in the eye, and he could have lost his eye. That's how serious that was.
I'm surprised that he didn't, get hurt as much as it seemed. Now, I remember you said that afterwards he kind of went to the ground or whatever.
Yeah, because after it first happened, he stood up and he kind of walked away, and some people ran over him to try to put immediate medical attention before paramedics and whatnot arrived. But you can see he kind of just he loses it. He sits down on the ground, he kind of lays back a little bit quickly, and the guy's holding him because of the fact that he fell down. I'm not sure if he 100% lost consciousness, but I wouldn't be surprised if he did. There's a lot of people surrounding him in the video, so it's kind of hard to tell.
I think you said Eric Clapton.
Yes. Was that incorrect?
Close. Clanton. Clapton is the guitar guy.
Okay. Eric Clanton, yeah. Close enough.
But yeah, it's just
We don't want to.
Sorry, Mr. Clapton, my bad. You just happen to have a similar name.
Very similar, actually.
Clinton.
Yeah, but it's just an insane story, and it just goes to show how dangerous it's getting on college campuses, how crazy it's getting on college campuses, and how dangerous it is getting on college campuses. Just having an opposing viewpoint.
Yeah, that's my point. That's the point. It really needs to be emphasized because this is how civil wars percolate. You know, this when people feel it's okay, the violence is justified, and it's not necessary. I don't need communists to feel like they're under threat of violence. I just need, my point to be able to have a voice as well. And then let the free market decide who's got the better ideas. It's America.
Yeah. But I want to go into this next story that we have. So at the University of Madison, there is a student who was arrested, a black student, was arrested for graffitiing all across the campus. He actually did $4,000 worth of damage. He wrote things like, "Fuck the police, death to pigs," and similar different kind of things to that line. And the students at the University of Wisconsin are actually demanding control over the cops, who they control over hiring and firing cops, because they believe that there is implicit bias over the police arresting this individual. His name is Denzel McDonald. He goes by King Shabazz. But in this incident that happened, he actually threatened to kill a witness to his graffiti crime. But still, you look at how crazy it has gone in these college universities. And, I'm from Wisconsin. I know how liberal it is, and I definitely know how liberal the University of Madison is. I actually had a lot of friends this weekend graduate from the University of Madison. But that's just how crazy it's gotten at a college university like the University of Madison. Yeah, Bobby.
It even says that the student government voted on a UWPD accountability and community control of the police resolution, and it passed 28-0.
No one opposed this measure. Even though this guy's openly committing property damage,
threatening to kill witnesses,
threatening to kill people, putting out, violent anti-police rhetoric. I don't understand how anyone can have sympathy for this individual. But, the cops are the bad people because this guy's black and you're not allowed to, I guess, enforce the law against blacks.
Well, yeah, people of color have been historically marginalized, and we need to fight back against that by making sure that the police can't do their jobs. That's the only fair thing to do.
Which really actually hurts people of color more disproportionately than white people. But yeah, let's keep doing that, Antifa. You're doing a great job. They're suspending logic. That's the only way you could do this. They're suspending logic, and I'm just glad we live in Texas. But even then, it's being indoctrinated. I have friends that agree with Antifa, and they don't go out and do the same tactics, but they think it's justified because of Trump, and it's just not. So.
Yeah, I have no idea what drives someone to go to this level of mental illness, to have this sort of reasoning to the situation, but I guess there's plenty of people out there in the world like that.
That's also a problem with democratic elections, because we see how, like we said, this thing passed in their student government 28-0? And those people had to have been elected. And that stuff happens everywhere too, People with that mindset vote.
Yeah.
And that counters...
They're vocal.
They are very vocal. And that counters our mindset. And what happens when the other side has more people than we do? Then they vote themselves into power, and then we see what happens, especially like in the state of California, where, their legislature's putting all this commie crap all the time. And there gets to the point where, your rights start getting taken away. Your freedom of speech starts getting taken away because people have been voted into office by people who don't believe in it.
Law and order and public safety goes away.
Right.
As we said, this guy threatened a student who saw him doing this.
when, it's obvious to us that, well, yeah, the guy should have been arrested. But what happens when you have, twice as many, 3 times as many people on the other side who think, oh, no, he shouldn't have been done that. Something needs to be done about this. And, that's all I'm going to say for now.
What do you think we could do? Any ideas? Just throwing that out there.
I mean, you're not going to easily be able to just say, hey, you people aren't allowed to vote anymore. That would solve the problem for sure, just by revoking the right to vote by like a third to half of the country. But that's not going to go over easily.
You want to know what my radical solution to this problem is? Let's blow up 95% of the colleges of the United States. I don't think they serve purposes at this point. I don't think people should even be going to college. I mean, I kind of regret going to college, and I'm almost done, and like I'm about to go into the career of a lifetime, and it's like the best thing ever. But I still don't think it's like a good thing in general. But yeah, don't take me too serious with the call to blow up 95% of college campuses. But I mean, these people wouldn't have a college to go to be crazy.
Somebody out there report this guy to Homeland Security.
If we blew up all those colleges, I wouldn't have any news to report about.
Yeah, these episodes would be at least half an hour shorter.
Yeah.
Dude, sorry, did y'all see that YouTube video of the social justice warriors called the day the social justice warriors disappeared?
No.
Yeah, like apparently it was and of course it was made by liberals, so take it with a grain of salt, but every social justice warrior disappears like in an instant for whatever reason. And so all these Trump supporters are like, yeah, I used to make YouTube videos, but now I don't because it's so hard being creative. I have nothing else to talk about now that there's no more social justice warriors. It's just ridiculous, you know what I mean? That they think that that's all we're trying to do.
If that was the case, they would just stop talking about them and like just focus on the actual politics instead of having to worry about these insane identity politics that would distract from actual politics and just seeks to divide us and keeps us from really solving a lot of problems in the world.
Yeah.
And I mean, I kind of want to move on here, but that kind of mindset also makes them do things to themselves to try to blame it on the other side. And for instance, there was a racist note that was found at St. Olaf College, which I believe is in Minnesota. And this girl said she found this letter, like a flyer on campus. And it was typed out and it said, "I'm so glad that you are leaving soon. One less N-word that this school has to deal with. You have spoken up too much. You will change nothing. Shut up or I will shut you up." Well, it turns out that it was a complete hoax and she likely typed it herself to try to pin the other side. And I'm of the belief that, if you fake a hoax, if you fake a hate crime as a hoax, which it seems like all of them are nowadays.
We've reported so many on the show.
And, it gets to the point where anytime I hear that like a hate crime is committed, I automatically think that it's a hoax. And that's like a bad mindset to have. But that's the reality.
Especially when it's happening in these college campuses.
And there's so many of them that turned out to be hoaxes. But I definitely think that if you fake a hate crime, you should get the punishment that normally would have been given to the person who would have done it if it was real.
I agree with that.
So,
that'd be a good punishment.
We never see punishment for these things, though. Did she say why she justified it?
I don't know, but after they asked her about it, she says, "I will be saying it was a hoax. I don't care. There is nothing more that I can do. I just wanted to give you all a heads up."
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Now, I've seen in the past people try to justify it like, oh, well, I'm just spreading awareness to a greater problem by actually, committing fear in the public. But, that's pretty much junky logic just to, try to explain away completely abhorrent behavior.
It is, and, I mean, it's not even to say that there's not racist people that support Trump. I will admit that, but what I will also admit is that, in my opinion, there's the exact equal amount on both sides, so they just cancel each other out. There's just racist people in existence. So whether they support Trump or whether they support Democrats, I don't care. There's equal number on both sides. Everyone I know is not a racist. Everyone I know is not a racist. So it doesn't affect me. You know what I mean? In a bigot racist.
Yeah, I know what you're referring to. Yes.
Stop giving me that wink. No, but so I think it. Okay, there's this new show on Netflix called Dear White People. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Oh, well, obviously we've heard
Yeah,
of it.
I've heard of that.
Have you watched it?
No.
The concept is a race hoax that this black girl does, and she tricks this white fraternity into doing a blackface party. But she sent out the invitations saying, "Oh, it's going to be a blackface party." So then they all go in blackface but she's the one that did it.
Yeah.
Right, because she wanted to expose the racism that exists, and in that show, yes, like they did all have a blackface party. But what I've seen in reality, I saw a guy go to a Trump rally with a Nazi armband on, a white guy, and he was like, "Hey, Trump, Trump, Trump," and all the Trump supporters surrounded him and said, "You get the fuck out of here. You're not a part of us. You have nothing to do with us. Get out of here." And he was actually doing a social experiment, like on YouTube, you know what I mean? He's like, "Hey guys, I just want y'all not to hurt me, but I'm not a Nazi. I have nothing against Trump. That's fine. I'm not a Democrat either. I was doing a social experiment." And of course everybody started to calm down. They're like, "You got it. We thought you were for real. None of us here," and there was a majority white people in that group, "none of us here would support anything you have to talk about, ever." So for black people or Muslim people to perpetuate this idea that if you're white, you have secret desire to be a Nazi or secret desire to be a supremacist, it doesn't exist in my mind. I don't see that.
Yeah,
Not in
just
reality.
like that show you said, it just seems like bullshit that they just made
Bullshit.
up and wrote on TV. Like, if there was invitations for a blackface
Who would
party,
go to that? Really?
Who would go?
Who would go?
That just sounds ridiculous.
Yeah.
But you know what else is ridiculous? Is there's a black student group at UC Santa Cruz that they did a sit-in and they took over.
They took over.
They took over a campus building, and the college gave in to every single one of their demands.
Every single one.
Every single one. And the demands were they wanted the university to purchase a property to, quote, serve as a low-income housing cooperative for historically disadvantaged students.
No, actually, those aren't the initial ones. Now
Yeah, these are the three additional demands that they want.
Now the first initial demands, which prompted them to occupy and take over these buildings, and they said, "We're not going to leave until these conditions are met." The first one is they wanted to give all Black and Caribbean identified students a 4-year housing guarantee to live in the Rosa Parks African American themed house. The second, to bring back the building's lounge. The third, paint its exterior the Pan-African colors of red, green, and black. And four, force all incoming students to go through a mandatory diversity competency training. Now, the university, instead of sending the police and kicking out students that are occupying a building, they actually capitulate. But then they go into those 3 demands, and they make 3 more demands,
right,
which are the ones you're going to mention.
And the 3 demands that I was reading, and these are the 3 additional demands. They want the university to purchase a property to, quote, serve as a low-income housing cooperative for historically disadvantaged students. Second, that the university allocate $100,000 for Santa Cruz's SOMICA student organization support department, which I'm guessing is some sort of diversity, whatnot. And the third one is they want the university to create either a Black Studies department or a Black Studies minor or major.
Now, at the very bottom of their demands, they actually put a quote from Asanta Shakur, which is a former member of the Black Panther Party, who's also a convicted murderer. And the quote goes, "It is our duty to fight for our freedom. It is our duty to win. We must love each other and support each other. We have nothing to lose but our chains."
And now I think there's one thing that we didn't mention that's very important, is that they're threatening more campus takeovers if these 3 additional demands are not met.
They're going to just keep bending over back and forth. I mean, there's no incentive for them not to meet their demands when their entire perspective of society says that we owe them more and more and more.
Now, when they're pressed further, if there was going to be any sort of disciplinary actions against the students who took over a building at the university, all the representative from the UC Santa Cruz campus said is that their main priority is safety. No mention of even disciplining students, which are pretty much taking like a terroristic action to take over buildings. But it's just so strange that these students believe that it is our duty to fight for our freedom, the freedom to paint a dorm like in certain colors. That's like the level of oppression that they're fighting, to the point to where like, oh, I want to change the interior decoration of this building. Like, what the? I don't. Why are people capitulating to these freaking retards? I don't get it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And there are so many people that have that mindset, though. Like, you mentioned earlier, what makes people... I can't even fathom, like, how people even think that way. Maybe we're different. Maybe we just all think differently, but I don't know.
Now, they actually go in to say with their rhetoric, they reject the term occupation. They don't say they occupied the building. They said it was a reclamation. They reclaimed the building. This is the level of this is the mindset that these people live in. And we're supposed to see these people as like credible scholars of academia who's supposed to graduate and contribute to public. How did they even let these people into a university? How did they get accepted when they're this insane? I don't understand it.
I guess you can major in bitching.
But there's some good news though.
Yeah.
And the good news is that the state of Tennessee has enacted the nation's most comprehensive pro-campus free speech law in the country.
Now, do you have this up, Bobby?
I do, yes. And it was voted unanimously in the Tennessee Senate, and overwhelmingly voted for in the Tennessee House of Representatives. And then it was signed into law. It's called the Campus Free Speech Protection Act. And what it pretty much does is it removes the so-called free speech zones, which are made on campuses to try to like limit areas of campus where like viewpoints can be heard and where free speech is allowed. And it also said that university administrators are prohibited from rescinding the invitations from students or faculty of speakers with whom they disagree or fear will cause disruption.
Oh, great.
So the university can't just be like, well, we disagree with this person, so we're not going to have them on. No, if the person is invited, they are allowed to come.
For sure.
And that's a huge win for our side and for free speech.
Yeah.
And it also it demands that campuses kind of crack down on like harassment of people that are against free speech. You kind of understand what I mean by that? Mm-hmm. So overall, I really like this, and I think every state should have something like this.
Most definitely. I hope we get something like that in Texas, because our campuses really could use a little bit more of a backbone to their enforcement.
Like I remember, this was 2 semesters ago. This is almost a year ago. We were tabling, and we set up a tent because it was sunny, and in the area of our quad where there's tents, they kind of have like the sidewalk has like lines in the sidewalk where the different pieces come together. And the poles that come down of our tent were literally no more than about an inch over the line. And this like administrator lady came up and yelled to us saying that we needed to move it back. So we like had to move the entire thing back 1 inch. Like that was insane to me. Like, I thought like saying, lady, this is free speech. We can be here. We're allowed to be here. Like, get out of my face. Of course, I didn't want to get like, expelled by the university. But, again, that comes back to what I was saying. There's people that have mindsets that like, that's okay to, limit free speech to the point where, you need to move that back by 1 inch, sir. Otherwise, we're going to have like the authorities arrest you or something like that. Like, why are these people allowed to vote?
Yeah. I can also speak to the similar things. I was, a very prominent kind of on-campus political activist. At one point, I was actually the president of Young Americans for Liberty, and I've tabled out in the quad. I can't even count the number of times I've been out there. I loved going out there, but you deal with such very very strange pushback. We have to be in a free speech zone, which the fact that we even have that's like absurd. But as Bobby is saying, there's a lady. She goes around with her clipboard and she monitors you. And even though this is supposed to be a place of free speech, the entire campus, and you're not even required to have any sort of registration, he goes around and she's like, "What's this organization?" She looks for ways to just shut you down. I've seen examples of this happening. My friends in Young Americans for Liberty actually made like a short documentary once about this. I could try to look it up, but it's just kind of insane. And they do it in kind of very minor ways to marginalize more, even like moderate right-wing viewpoints. Libertarianism isn't really an extremist viewpoint at all. But these universities are so leftist biased that they look for every single way that they can really penalize you and restrict your speech. Which, to go back to this law, it's really great that they ban free speech zones. The entire country is supposed to be a free speech zone. I mean, if it's private property, that's another thing. But these universities are public institutions. It's not legal to even make this a thing.
Yeah, and I have no problem with, this kind of expansion on campuses, man. I mean, because like you said, your radical solution, get rid of 95%. But honestly, this is how you make America great again. This is how you make education at the post-high school level great again. Letting people see what it's like to be an adult, what it's like to live in the adult world, which is you're not going to agree with people. And you can't shut them up because you don't agree with them. And hate speech is free speech. So when you deal with that, you're going to be a much more well-rounded person.
Yeah. Do you have any other thoughts on this, Bobby? I don't really have so many.
No.
Let's go into this last story that we have, which is a freaking doozy, because this is probably the craziest one we have this week. So at the University of Texas A&M, there's this professor named Tommy Curry, and he recently openly advocated for the killing of white people. So this guy, Tommy Curry, he teaches classes called Radical Black Philosophies and Social and Political Philosophy. In his class, he advocates critical race theory. If you don't understand Marxism or cultural Marxism, it all kind of goes back to critical theory, which is a concept of intersectionality where all these different kind of social issues combine together. But critical race theory is a black nationalist viewpoint of Marxist critical theory. So among, a bunch of other things crazy this guy said, Tommy Curry said that black people should talk openly about murdering white people. In a YouTube interview, he says that the murder of white people may be necessary for black liberation. Now, this guy, he publishes 2 books that the students are required to purchase, which a lot of liberal professors do to make extra money. The first one is The Philosophical Treatise of William H. Ferris, which he charges $125 for. And the second book he requires his students to buy is a book called The Man Knot, which costs $99.50. Now, atop on that, they pay this guy for the 8 months that he's teaching $86,274, and he only teaches 2 classes in the week on Tuesday, Thursday. He's only teaching around 3-4 hours, which I teach high school theater. I'm in the classroom like 6-7 hours. You count after school, you're adding on many more hours. This guy only teaches in a week 6 hours, and he's making $86,274, where the average public school, like high school teacher, makes, starting it's around like $35,000. I'm not allowed to openly call for the murdering of people, but this guy is allowed to. He actually, they asked the president of Texas A&M, President Michael Young, and he issued an official statement on this, where he pretty much shrugs off the comments that this professor made. He doesn't even actually refer to him by name. Now, I don't understand this at all. What kind of university they're running at Texas A&M, where you can have a professor, which they allow him to make so much money to barely work, and in these classes that he teaches, he calls for the killing of people. The people that are in his classroom. There's white people that go to these classes.
They agree with him, though, I think. Maybe not all of them, but I've heard many times, from out of white people's mouths that, some white people need to die, or the anger that POCs, as they call them, are feeling towards white people is justified, even to the point of, killing whitey. But it's not. I don't get it either. Like, I'm with you in that. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. But I think this, again, is just going back to the craziness that is the indoctrination. It's bad.
Well, yeah, and, like you mentioned, there are white students in this classroom, but it's not like any of them are, like, on our side.
Right.
It takes a white Marxist to go into a classroom like that. Like, no one on our side would even think about taking a class about, like, what was it called? Racial black philosophies. Radical black philosophies. What Trump supporter is going to take a class like that?
Why do they
out of their
even
own free will?
offer? Why do they even offer a class like that? What do you even learn from a class like that?
Like, our taxpayer money goes to pay for this sort of stuff. Like,
yeah, it
you're
goes
absolutely
to pay
right.
for this guy.
This should not be something that's even taught at college universities. There's a reason why tuition skyrocketed, because you have stupid stuff like this that people are taking.
Now, I want to read the summary for his book, The Man Not, just so you can get a kind of an idea of what he's requiring his students to pay $100 for. And I believe his other book is kind of similar to this. So, Tommy J. Curry's provocative book, The Man Not, is a justification for black male studies. He posits that we should conceptualize the black male as a victim oppressed by his sex. The man-mot, therefore, is a corrective of sorts, offering a concept of black males that could challenge the existing accounts of black men and boys desiring the power of white men who oppress them, that has been proliferated through academic research across disciplines. Curry argues that black men struggle with death and suicide, as well as abuse and rape, and their gendered existence deserves study and theorization. This book offers intellectual, historical, sociological, and psychological evidence that the analysis of patriarchy offered by mainstream feminism, including black feminism, does not yet fully understand the role that homoeroticism, sexual violence, and the vulnerability play in the death and lives of black males. Curry challenges how we think of and perceive the conditions that actually affect all black males.
Did you notice that black was always capitalized and white was always lowercase?
Yeah, I did.
Yep.
This is the most insane Marxist bullshit I've ever seen. And the fact that a university president doesn't even see fit to condemn him calling for the killing of whites. He pretty much just sees as, oh, well, we just need to kill whites to stop racism. What?
Like, not only that, this is like not even a 2-hour drive from where we are. This is close to home.
This is a prestigious university. I believe Texas A&M is like the biggest in the
It's the
country.
first college in Texas, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's the first one. It was the second university in Texas, actually, as a kind of a joke? It's Prairie View A&M. I once went to a college tour to A&M and Prairie View A&M, part of the National Black Association, funny enough. I went with a friend. I didn't know it was part of that group. But Prairie View and A&M was the second university ever built in Texas. It's down the road from A&M, and they built it because initially they didn't allow blacks and women into A&M, so they built that school for
It's a
them.
segregated college.
Yeah.
Oh wow, I didn't know that. That's
Now it's gotten to the point to where, like, I guess radical. I guess it's not like that at A&M anymore. Now you can be a radical black nationalist. So I guess there's progress in the world. They don't need their own
That's progress.
segregated college away. But yeah, I think with that we're done with current year college craziness. How do y'all feel about these different stories you heard this week?
Well, I'm just glad that it's now summer, so I don't have to deal with this sort of stuff for at least in a good 3 weeks until my summer classes start again.
Sam, how do you feel about these stories?
Well, it worries me, but I mean, I think that as the culture war progresses, things like what we're doing right now, and things like the things that 4chan are doing to make conservatism the counterculture, it's gonna benefit. I mean, this is just what we're seeing, in my opinion, is the effects of something that started decades ago. This kind of indoctrination, and so we'll get through it.
Yeah, I guess my viewpoint. I'm very grateful that I haven't had to experience the kind of radical stuff that these stories go into at Texas State. I've been in very left-wing classrooms. I've seen professors, say a lot of crazy things. I've been graded down for having viewpoints that oppose leftist viewpoints, and I've had teachers that openly talk about being Marxists and require us to learn about weird feminist stuff. Even at the end of the day, though, at least none of them advocated for the killing of whites as much as they denigrated whites on a daily basis.
Yeah, what is this, South Africa?
Yeah. You can listen to our Sadelanders midweek mini podcast if you want to hear about other people calling for the killing of whites. We did that last week. But as you said with kind of the culture war, I do believe that there is a very large growing pushback against these things, as radical as we're seeing. As I've said before, I teach children, and I get to firsthand experience the next generation, Generation Z. And, they're already predicted to be the most conservative generation potentially in the history of the United States. And I'll say this. I, every single day, am more convinced that that's true. Especially if these students are growing up under Donald Trump and they can see the prosperity that Donald Trump is giving firsthand. If you're 16 right now, you'll be able to vote in 2020. It makes me very optimistic for the future as far as us on the right. And I do believe in the end we will triumph over these evil Marxists. But with that said, let's get into some international news. I know there's a lot to get into this week. The first one we wanted to get into, since we couldn't even categorize this, since this affected the entire world, are
99 countries were affected.
The ransomware attacks. I know you know a lot more about this than I do, Bobby.
Right, so I'll just kind of go in and explain kind of what ransomware is for those who don't know. What happens is, like, a virus will get into your computer and it'll just completely lock up your computer. You won't be able to do anything, including, like, try to turn it off unless you, like, physically unplug the thing. But you won't be able to do anything, and it, like, encrypts all your stuff, and it forces you to pay money in order to access your system again. And what happened was there was this malware that just affected, like, systems in 99 countries, including the United Kingdom's national healthcare system there, which, if you don't know, that's their healthcare system. They said that all of their files and their computers were completely encrypted, and they lost control of their entire system when it hit, to the point where they had to go back and start doing stuff by paper again. And we're talking, this is a healthcare system that deals with, like, almost 100 million people. And they got a socialized national health system. And this took the entire thing down.
Yeah.
And anyways,
There's definitely people that were hurt that day.
And anyways, the ransomware, it was hitting all these computers, and it was wanting people to send $600 worth of Bitcoin to the address that they were given. And one of the things that people noticed very quickly was that the code that was used in order to affect these computers originated at the NSA. Now, it wasn't the NSA that carried out the attack, but that means that someone got a hold of their code and used it to just carry this whole thing off. And there's a big concern that there's going to be a second wave of it that's going to hit on Monday, which,
If you're listening to this show, it might have happened.
Yeah, it might have happened, it might not. Hopefully it didn't, but I would not be surprised if it did. So, I hope we can figure out who did it, and I hope we can stop them, because this is stuff that potentially brings down nations. Now, I think Enzo or Sam, one of you had mentioned about someone who found a way to stop it.
Yeah, I did when we first came into work on the prep for the show. I believe it was a 22-year-old guy that did this.
Who lives with his parents.
He was kind of an unsung hero for actually figuring out the kill switch for this entire ransomware attack. And I believe it only cost him like $11 to do, which is kind of insane that even like the cyber defenses here in the United States weren't able to stop this, but some dude that lives with his parents was able to do it.
And WikiLeaks quickly came out, and they've published stuff like software codes and whatnot before, but they always talk about the kill switches in case it ever gets out. And they said that they didn't have this. This was not them. If they had the kill switch codes, they would have used it to get rid of it immediately. So this is something that someone obviously, if you think about it deeper, that means someone's gotten into the NSA and stolen code that can do this. That's more like deep state stuff almost.
Yeah.
Or it could have been like a Snowden type that just had access to it and took it. But, I think we really need to think about the cybersecurity of our nation and the entire world, because this is something that just took everyone by surprise.
It especially affected Russia, it looks like, the most.
Correct.
I think that the dangers also politically for the United States are not good, because this is our weapon. We created it. We were responsible for protecting it, guarding it, and it got out on our watch. You're right, the NSA did not commit this, but without the NSA creating this weapon in the first place, it wouldn't have happened. Now, I think that the rest of the world sort of gets that it wasn't like an attack from our government, but if there's another, especially if there's another attack tomorrow, or if there's another attack in the coming weeks or months that is anywhere near this massive of a scale, people are going to they're going to come against the United States politically, because we're the ones that are causing, like you said, their nation to have trouble. The NHS, that's crazy.
Yeah.
People could die.
Yeah. And Donald Trump has called for us to increase our cybersecurity. I know very recently, but I just kind of don't really understand what measures we could take at this point.
It's hard.
If the only thing that saved us was a NEET that lived with his parents.
Yeah.
Thank God, but
I enjoyed the fact that Hollywood was begging for the FBI, because anytime something happens, like, say, some celebrities get their pictures hacked or stolen and get it leaked or whatever, the FBI helps them out right away, because the FBI is there, their cyber division or whatever, cybercrime division. And so it happened in Hollywood. Several movies, several shows, I believe even on Netflix, were stolen, or the data was encrypted with this ransomware, and the FBI said, we can't help you at all. Pay the ransom. That was their advice to Hollywood. Pay the ransom. So that was the one thing that made me smile, because they didn't get preference. But in the end, it really hurts everybody. So.
Yeah, and this affects businesses too.
Yeah.
Because think about it.
Yeah.
Everything nowadays is online. And if you take that down, you're literally destroying pretty much the entire world at that point.
I know FedEx was definitely majorly affected because of these attacks. I don't know why they attacked FedEx, but yeah, it's pretty dangerous world. We're seeing a lot of these attacks increasing over and over. I don't really understand how we could even stop them, but I definitely hope we do something soon. But with that said, I think we should get into this Mexico thing. So, kind of a a funny thing to hear. It looks like Mexicans are upset that immigrants are bringing crime to Mexico City. So, this came out on Tuesday. It's a report from El Universal. Apparently the residents of Mexico City are upset that immigrants are causing crime. The report says that there was a press conference held in Tapulcha by a leader of the local group called For a Different Mexico. The group's president, Victorino Alvarez Fuentes, said that immigrants were urinating in public and sexually assaulting women and minors. Now, Tapulcha is near the Guatemalan border, and besides immigrants that they've been seeing from Central America, they've also been seeing a large influx of African immigrants. And also, just speaking from things that I know, there's also a big influx of Asian immigrants going to Mexico, especially a lot of Syrians, which is pretty dangerous. I know I've seen reports of Syrians getting illegal passports from Honduras. So there's definitely a lot of dangerous individuals coming up through Mexico. But I guess this is pretty funny that the Mexicans are saying that they're worried about immigrants committing crime, but we're not supposed to be saying that here in the United States, even though it's pretty demonstrable, and I've gone into the numbers on this in the past, how the media hides it and how you actually find the real numbers. But do y'all have some thoughts on the people in Mexico City reporting that they don't really like these immigrants so much?
I think it's amazing. I think it's like you said. It really shows their hypocrisy, because they constantly are saying, how prideful they are that they'll never pay for the wall. Hey, maybe Trump could use this as a leverage to say that it's time. It's time to get at least to the table and negotiate how we're going to, in effect, have them pay for the wall. The U.S. has actually even done, I believe, operations in Mexico to assist the Mexican government with the cartels in the past. What would stop us from doing it in the future? I'm just saying, if we could come to the table and benefit for the security of North America, it's just time for the media to address these issues, I think.
Yeah. What are your thoughts, Bobby, on this?
Well, now even they're learning that they're not sending their best.
No.
Yep.
Doesn't seem like anyone south of the border is really interested in sending their best. Mexico's not sending their best, and then Central America's not sending their best to Mexico. Just kind of a funny story to get into. But now I kind of want to get into this Middle East stuff, because there's definitely a lot of stuff happening out in the Middle East. Do you have this first thing about the Syrian Kurds up here, Bobby?
Yeah, so the Trump administration they've approved a plan to arm the Syrian Kurds in their fight against ISIS. Now, a lot of people have different viewpoints on whether or not that's a good idea. I personally think it is. I tend to be more pro-Kurdistan than a lot of people. But, anyone that can fight ISIS in the area is, a friend to us, at least, not necessarily the whole enemy and my enemy as my friend thing, but, Kurdistan definitely should be its own separate nation, and
they are a definitive nation in the definitional sense of a nation as a group of discernible people to an ethnic lineage.
But
so Kurdistan in that sense exists, but there is no Kurdish nation.
There is no Kurdish nation. But anyways, the thing is, they said it's kind of a blow to U.S. ties with Turkey. Now, I mean, Erdogan took over Turkey. Erdogan took over Turkey, and
which we reported in the last couple weeks.
Yes, and so I think even he was bombing the Kurds, wasn't he?
No, yeah, the Turkish military openly sends airstrikes into the Kurdish occupied Syrian areas. Now, I know that the YPG recently actually said that they're not willing to sell their souls out to the Americans for these weapons. So I don't know if we're actually going to be able to go forward with these things that the Trump administration is calling for. But yeah, in general, I support the Kurds over ISIS and Turkey. Those are like two of the shittiest things in the region. Do you have any thoughts on this, Sam, or no?
No, I just don't really have any thoughts on that.
It's a crazy situation in
Yeah.
Syria. It's very confusing for a lot of people, but we report on this so many times. It seems like there's new stuff to talk about every single week.
I would say that,
story.
you know, if we're going to arm them, I hope they make it worthwhile.
Yeah. So do you have this thing on sending more troops to Afghanistan up?
Yeah, so this was on NBC News, and they said that the Trump administration is weighing whether or not to send 5,000 more troops to Afghanistan. I mean, I hope they don't. I just want us to just leave and come home. But they said that currently we have about 8,400 people in 8,400 troops in Afghanistan right now. And the first plan they thought might increase it by 3,000, but this one apparently they're looking to maybe increase it by 5,000. They haven't made the decision yet, but you know, they're just trying to weigh the possibilities. So
Yeah, it seems after, in the last couple of weeks, we've been seeing hostilities in Afghanistan really rise out of nowhere almost. It seems like the Taliban's really coming back out of nowhere. Now, of course, I agree with you that I want us to leave Afghanistan. It's been this waste of time. We've been there since 2001. But it seems like these generals that we have under the Trump administration are just so war crazy that they just want to send more troops into these war zones, which just feel like these failed wars. I mean, Afghanistan is like a longer war than Vietnam, and it feels like its own Vietnam.
And, you know, you can tell how much of a pullback we've actually done. Because I just said that right now we only have about, 8,500-ish troops there. We peaked in Obama's early years at just around 100,000 troops in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
So we've got, less than a tenth of that. So even if we did increase it, that's definitely nowhere close to where it even was at its peak.
Yeah.
So,
I think if Trump does decide to go in there, I used to think, like you guys are saying right now, that we should just leave and, just get out of there. Whatever negativity comes out of it, or positive, just get out of there. Whatever the cost, just get out of there. It's been enough. It's like Vietnam. But I don't know. I think Trump's going for a different sort of military strategy than we're used to seeing actually work. So I trust him. I think, of course, we're going to have to trust him as our commander-in-chief to make the right decisions so that we don't have too big of an increase to this already PTSD-ridden generation of veterans that come back.
At this point, multiple generations.
Yeah, for sure. But I think that he was given just a crazy situation with regards to the foreign policy, and so if he does eventually decide, I trust his direction. I don't think it's going to backfire the way it did for Obama, where he would send troops in and things would get worse. It would be like he was just stirring up the mess. I think Trump's actually going to put the right people, at least the right generals, in charge to get the jobs done. Now, I do get it, though. Like I said, in my life, I've really been anti-war. I was against Bush and going into Iraq like Trump was. I was against the wars and the increase in the wars that Obama had during his tenure, especially with Syria. But
And Libya.
Trump is a different thing. He's a different sort of mechanism in foreign policy. So while I don't want these wars to continue or spiral out of control, I don't think that Trump will reach that point based on what he's doing and has done. I mean, he did the Moab in Afghanistan, and that definitely saved a lot of lives, American troops. And we have more Moabs. Maybe.
Yeah, we got to use them all this year.
You can just
yeah,
do
they
that.
expire in 2018, so.
How many do you remember we have?
We have, I think, 15 or 16 left.
Yeah.
That we know of that aren't classified.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And who knows what other type of weapons we have that are classified that we could potentially also use.
Did you have something else to say to this, or are we good to go on the next thing?
Oh, I just quickly wanted to say that, you were saying that there's like a surprise uprising in like the amount of Taliban activity. And, part of the global, war on Islamic terrorism is to get rid of the Taliban or like at least weaken them. So if they're getting stronger, if you want to continue down that road, you do need to try to defeat them whenever possible. That might mean sending more people there.
Right.
So I'm just going to take a wait and see attitude on this one and wait and see.
Same
Yeah.
here.
So the next thing that we wanted to get into is there's a dramatic increase in Christians having to leave the Middle East. Now, I know we originally had the Wall Street Journal thing up, but, the Wall Street Journal is garbage and it's a paywall. So I got one off Newsmax, which actually has pretty much the same information. Now, it looks like a century ago, Christians constituted 13.6% of the Middle East. Most people don't really know that it used to be a pretty prominent religion in the area. It's predicted now by 2025, Christians will only constitute 3% of the Middle East. That is how serious they're being driven out of the Middle East now, that radical Islam is really getting bad in the region, especially with the rise of the Islamic State. Now, last month we reported on the show there was the bombings on Palm Sunday in those Coptic Christian churches in Egypt. It's just seemingly just getting more and more violent, and under Islamic law, they're not allowed to kill people of similar Abrahamic faith. They're not allowed to kill Christians and Jews. But both Christians and Jews are seeing an uptick in killings, and now they're having to leave places where, that people have been practicing Christianity in these places for centuries.
And, over a year ago, the United States government, as well as I think the British government, took a vote on whether or not to recognize it as a genocide of Christians by ISIS. United States voted to recognize it, and I think in the UK, I believe, also voted to recognize it. But you know what? One country actually voted against recognizing it as a genocide? Canada. Canada overwhelmingly actually voted to not recognize it as a genocide, whereas in the United States Congress, it was almost unanimous, as well as the British Parliament.
And, if you kind of bring it back to Turkey and just kind of the Middle East in general, there used to be, secularist democracies. You look at Syria, you look at Turkey. Now we're seeing a huge swing in Turkey to where they're becoming this hugely, radical Islamic state under Erdogan. And as the conflict in Syria goes on, we've seen the rise of ISIS, more radical Islam rising up. It doesn't really seem to be an end from it. Now, in the article, they have a quote from an individual, Yvonne Abdo, which just kind of very poignant. I kind of want to close this out with. He said, "I love Egypt. I love my memories here, but I am scared now." Now Yvonne lives in Kuwait City, and her husband Mina was killed in those Egyptian Palm Sunday attacks. And she says, "We will come back for visits. We must. My husband is buried here." Now, you remember with the first trial ban, Trump really pushed for, increased refugee status for Christians in the Middle East?
Yeah.
But, that was actually one of the big things that got shot down with that first trial ban, having any sort of, extra sympathy towards Christians, because, we're discriminating against Muslims, but really we're dealing with a situation where, Christians aren't being persecuted. I don't really like playing up like the whole, Christians are these huge persecuted groups, but there is a huge rise in Christians globally being persecuted.
It'd be similar, I would say, and we can talk about the details of this as we have privately. But the Holocaust. who was the main persecuted group in that was the Jews, but that doesn't mean only Jewish people were
killed.
So of course Muslims are affected by what's happening with ISIS. Of course, other people are affected, but by a disproportionate amount, it's Christians.
Yeah. Bobby, do you have the stuff up on the Saudi Arabia deal that we have?
Yes, I
next on the
do,
list?
senor.
Yeah,
So-
this is actually a pretty big thing.
So, anyways, the United States and Saudi Arabia are in the final stages of negotiations for a $300 billion arms deal. Now, keep in mind, Trump is going to be visiting Rome, Saudi Arabia, and Israel at the end of this month. That's the three heads of all three Abrahamic religions. And if you remember what we stated earlier, how Trump had the ambassador to Russia and the ambassador to Ukraine, and he met with them on the same day saying, let's make peace. A lot of people are thinking like, look, Trump's going after the three big religions in the area. He might be someone who can actually bring peace, through this. But, anyways, that doesn't really have anything to do with it. But, we're negotiating a $300 billion arms deal to sell weapons to Saudi Arabia.
Do you have any other details on that?
Yeah. It pretty much is, we already pay for a lot of, like, Israel's defense.
Yeah.
But we don't really put too much on other areas or other countries in the region.
Well, Saudi Arabia spends, I believe, around 10% of their GDP on the military.
Yeah.
So Saudi Arabia, you put that in perspective, we're struggling to get these NATO countries to spend 2%. We can't even get Germany to spend 2% of GDP. But Saudi Arabia spends 10% of GDP on the military. And if you look at the situation with Yemen, the Saudis are openly, killing people in Yemen. But they get away with this because Saudi Arabia is an ally of the United States. It's like one of the worst alliances we have, along with Turkey, because the Saudis, they fund a lot of radical extremists, jihadist terrorists, including ISIS.
Well, they're getting sued right now, too, by the families of the September 11th attack.
Yeah. I remember they allowed them to do that last year.
Yeah.
So, it kind of leaves a bad taste in my stomach. Yeah, okay, $300 billion is good coming to the United States, but really at what cost? We're really arming this crazy, monarchy.
For sure.
A monarchy in Saudi Arabia.
Furious thing where it ends up, we're killing, or friendly fire kills us because of weapons.
And who's to say these arms don't directly go into the hands of terrorists?
Right.
Yeah, that's my biggest concern as well.
But, speaking of money, billions of dollars of money from Saudi Arabia going to the United States, Saudi Arabia recently looked to bolster their ties to us by investing $40 billion in U.S. infrastructure. Do you have this stuff up, Bobby?
Yeah, I do. So it pretty much says that, exactly what you said. They're planning $40 billion of infrastructure investments to the United States. So maybe Saudi Arabia might be the ones that end up paying for the wall.
Yeah, that would actually be enough.
You
to
pay for
almost
two
build,
walls with
yeah,
that.
you could build 2 walls with that funding. Yeah, but they probably won't even let us build one with that money.
Yeah.
As we've said so many times on this show before, it's not that hard to find the funding for this wall. Side
Sure,
tangent.
do have some other infrastructure issues, though.
We definitely do.
I even heard Bernie Sanders really getting all over recently, praising Donald Trump quite a bit because, bottom line, he just wants to take care of infrastructure.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the big things that Trump. It's one of the big things that Trump campaigned on was just, we need to fix the nation's infrastructure. We got crumbling bridges and
right.
Third world airports and stuff like that. So
He wanted in the recent budget proposal, or he said it at that address to Congress, I know for sure, that he wants a $1 billion infrastructure spending bill. Now, that's definitely a lot of money to be spending on infrastructure. Was it $1 billion or $1 trillion?
I think it was $1 trillion.
Yeah,
$1 billion,
it was
$1 billion is
trillion.
not very much.
No, that's not a lot. $1 trillion in infrastructure spending. Now that is definitely a lot of money to be spending. Now the national budget's only debt's only like 20 trillion.
Correct.
So that would be a really dramatic increase. At the same time, I mean, there's a lot of necessary improvements we need to do across the United States. It would be a good investment, but I just don't understand at what price.
I think he's gonna be like the infrastructure president because he's a builder. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I'm not even saying he's behind every single thing, obviously, but with these policies going, towards more infrastructure building and things like that, the roads, the railroads, different things that we need done in different areas. I mean, they go beyond short-term policy. So I'm
no president has anywhere near the construction site experience that Donald Trump knows. He writes about this in Art of the Deal, constantly going out to these sites and making a point to talking to the people that are building. So I guess if Saudi Arabia wants to give us $40 billion to spend on our own infrastructure, I just feel like Donald Trump, of all people, will do a good job of putting that infrastructure money to good use.
So, if we can get $40 billion from the Saudis, then that's great.
Yeah.
But let's move on to the next story.
The last story that we have on the Middle East is the Senate actually pushed through an anti-Iran bill. Do you have this stuff up, Bobby?
Yeah, it's a bill pushing more sanctions on Iran. Now, we've been having sanctions on Iran for a very long time, so that's nothing surprising or new. But especially after that whole, when we paid them $400 million in cash with that airdrop
for the trade in prisoners.
Yeah.
Which everyone likes to talk about. Oh, Obama had no controversies. That was a huge controversy during the summer. Obama blatantly lied about that stuff. But our relationships with Iran have been so muddied, especially with the Iran deal, while also having sanctions. Where do y'all feel about increasing sanctions on Iran?
I mean, some people view sanctions as like an act of war. I don't really. I view it more as an act of economics. Which, I mean, yeah, there's economic war, but, I don't really care. But Iran's definitely not someone who I want to provoke. It's also someone who I don't really want to deal with. So I'm okay with sanctions.
They're a big ally of Russia. They're also one of the biggest sponsors of international jihadist terrorism in the world, so that's definitely not good. As far as economic sanctions go, I do kind of see them as pretty inhumane, since it directly targets citizens, since you're economically trying to disadvantage people. I think in that sense they're pretty bad, but I don't know what else you could really do to punish Iran in any sense.
Nothing short of war is what you can do. So sanctions are really the only way where you can actually hit them where it hurts without actually doing much.
Now, actually in mid-April, Donald Trump signed an executive order to direct the National Security Council to do a 90-day interagency review of the Iran nuclear deal that we did, which, Donald Trump on the campaign trail condemned many times over, saying, this is one of the worst deals that we've ever had. But it's going to evaluate whether we're going to have suspension of sanctions on Iran, or if we are going to ramp up sanctions on Iran. And, if we have increased sanctions on Iran, we'll see many of our allies do the same. So, I guess this hasn't passed through the House, this bill, I don't believe yet. But I believe it's very likely that it'll pass, since this had bipartisan support.
Yeah, it seems like most pro-Israel or anti-Iran stuff tend to have bipartisan support.
Yeah. So this will probably go through, and we should see an increase in sanctions on Iran, which, kind of iffy on if that improves things or not, but...
And one other thing that's happening to see an increase right now is the number of Ebola patients. In fact, it's so bad that there has been a new Ebola epidemic declared in the Congo. Now, you guys remember how bad the whole Ebola scare got a couple of years ago. Well, guess what? It's back.
What are the details that you have on this, Bobby?
A new strain of the virus is out, and it's kind of spreading very, very, very fast. And so far, I'm trying to see if they have numbers. Yeah, they said the largest outbreak. The largest outbreak in West Africa was between December 2013 and January 2016. That killed 11,000 people over that time period. Because of the fact that Ebola has a 90% fatality rate. Now, after the whole scare kind of hit the world back in what was it, 2014 or early 2015?
I don't really
whatever that
remember
was.
Ebola very well.
I remember there's the whole scare because people were concerned that it was going to come here because we shipped a couple of doctors or whatever that got it. We shipped them to the United States to get treatment, and they were the first people in the world, or that was the first time the disease had ever spread to the Western Hemisphere. And one of the doctors that was looking over a patient contracted it herself, I mean. And
Yeah.
she was safe, and everyone we treated was safe because we actually developed a cure for it. And that was then sent to Africa, and they pretty much took out, it pretty much ended the epidemic. But now there's a new strain that's back, so, it's
Hopefully
probably
we
not
can
going to be
keep that contained.
Yeah, it's probably not going to be as bad as the first one, but that's definitely something that we don't want to have, spreading. So,
Yet another reason why we need to have a good immigration policy and
Yeah.
good vetting.
but there's nothing really else that we can say about that. Just the fact that just be careful, keep following the story, and yeah.
That's true. Because even Americans could go there and come back. So yeah, you got to just be careful.
Yeah, so let's get into some of these European stories that we have. It looks like the United Kingdom is looking to slash immigration after Brexit. Do you have this stuff up, Bobby?
Yeah. So Theresa May has she's pledging to keep the Tory target, which is they want to slash their net migration to under 100,000 people a year. Which if you understand their current migration, it's a lot more than that. And the Tories, which is their Conservative Party, they want to severely limit the amount of immigration, especially after Brexit. They'll have the ability to do that.
Theresa May is the Prime Minister of the United
Correct.
Kingdom.
And, while they're still in the EU has a lot of say on their immigration policies. But that's one of the reasons why Brexit passed, is they wanted to control their immigration again.
It was the biggest, pretty much, reason why it passed. It was a referendum on immigration, where they want to go. Now, essentially where they are at the moment, they have pretty much open borders. Every single person in the European Union has a right to go to the United Kingdom.
Yeah, and if you understand, like I said, their migration policies, the last set of official figures has their net migration per year at right around 273,000. So this would be cutting it almost a third, or almost to a third.
Yeah. So that'll be good. And a lot of these, individuals that are migrating to the United Kingdom are these economic migrants that we've seen so much crime coming from throughout Europe, and where we see a lot of these terrorist attacks coming from. So it's very good that they're looking to change that. Hopefully that can happen sooner rather than later, because these Brexit negotiations are going to be happening for a while still. Should we get into this stuff with Italy looking to remove migrants?
We can just quickly mention it. So yeah, Italy is having a big migration problem, especially with people from North Africa coming through them, and they've been pretty okay with it, but now they're not, and they want to get rid of them. So that pretty much summarizes that.
Yeah, we actually this week we had Lauren Southern. If you don't know, the big right-wing journalist, she went out with a identity or not Identity Europa, Generation Identitaire, which is a European nationalist group, where they went out to try to stop German NGOs illegally picking up migrants from Syria or Libya to bring them into the European Union. Now, they went out to try to stop these illegal NGOs going to pick them up, these migrants. And the Italian Coast Guard arrested Lauren Southern and these Generation Identitaire individuals, which, it's funny when you look at what are those people that do that stuff with stopping the whaling and
I know what you're referring to. Yeah, Whale Wars or whatever that show is
what
called.
are they called? I don't know.
Blockades?
What?
Blockades?
No, I gotta
Anyway.
try to look up the specific name of this stuff actually.
Okay, yeah, keep
But
talking.
you know those like whaling organizations where they go out to try and stop them. When they do that, like the boats that are doing that stuff are legal. You know, they're doing a legal activity, and you know the authorities don't stop these people trying to stop illegal practice, but the Italian authorities arrest people trying to stop illegal practices. It's really something else. If you understand, you know, the NGO ring that brings all these migrants out of Libya, they work with a ton of human traffickers and actually openly Al Qaeda just to bring in all these people. You know, as Gaddafi said, you know, if you take him out, the floodgates of Africa will be open. And ever since Gaddafi's been removed under President Obama, you know, to the behest of Secretary Hillary Clinton, we're just seeing this flooding into Europe of these migrants. You know, people not in any sort of war. They're just people coming to take advantage of Europe's economic success. So definitely not good stuff. But at least the Italians are trying to push back against that stuff. Now,
The next thing we have is apparently Jeremy Corbyn, who, if you don't know, he's pretty much the head of the Labour Party in the UK, right?
they're the leftist opposition to the Tories, Conservatives in the United Kingdom.
And he had a manifesto that pretty much detailed what the Labour Party wants to do, and it got leaked. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was leaked. Now, I guess I'll do a little prep before Bobby goes into some of these things. Or yeah, I can do it actually. If you look at the situation, or Jeremy Corbyn is a pretty much open communist. Now, Theresa May called for the snap election, which we talked about, I believe, 1 or 2 weeks ago. The Labour Party is looking to lose big league. I think they're going to lose something by like 20, 25 points. So definitely a big failure. And you know, if you look at what this manifesto, which I am about to tell you what's in it, it's definitely not promising, since they're looking to go even more like all-out communism, at least what they'd want. So one of the first things that it pledges is to nationalize energy firms, railways, bus firms, and Royal Mail. So they just want to go to private corporations and say, no, this now belongs to the United Kingdom government. So they're doing, you know, essentially what communist governments do. You know, they do this in places like Venezuela, which we reported the Venezuelan government going, I believe it was ExxonMobil, they just went and stole a factory from them. So definitely not good to act like frickin' Venezuela.
Now, this also says that they want to have income tax hikes for those earning more than £80,000 a year.
Yeah, they want to do a lot of different taxes, I believe. Another one they want to do is ensuring a 20%. They want to ensure 20% of the UK's energy.
60%.
60%. Yeah, I don't know why I was saying 20. Will come from renewable sources by 2030, which, you know, I guess is not the worst thing. They want fines for businesses that pay the staff high wages and business levies on profits. So they want to penalize businesses actually benefiting their employees and doing actually things that would help grow the economy. Another thing that they want to do is companies with government contracts would only be allowed to pay their highest earners 20 times more than the lowest. So they want to put government artificial caps on how companies allocate their own resources instead of allowing businesses just to make the best choices for themselves. Were there any other pledges that are down here? I think there was more, but those are the ones that they state. Oh, they want to continue to remain in the European Union. Jeremy Corbyn actually wants to fight the Brexit resolution and actually reverse it, which actually goes against what the majority of people in the United Kingdom want. They've done polling. Even people that voted Remain do want Brexit to go through generally because that's what they voted on. They don't want to do another vote on this.
Doesn't Article 50 also prevent that from happening anytime soon? Like
the Brexit resolution passing, they have to negotiate with every single country independently first before they do that.
Yeah, but they already did. They did Article 50.
It begins the process.
And they have a 2-year time limit.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know how it works, but at the end of that 2-year time limit, let's say they have not set up agreements with some countries. Oh well, I mean it's the end of the 2 years, right? They're out. Isn't that how that works?
I believe that's how it works. But anyways, there's
there's
a
lot
poll.
of things you have to do to get it through.
Yeah.
There's actually a poll on this article, and it says, "Would you trust Jeremy Corbyn to command the UK military?" It's got 83% of people vote no.
Yeah, one of the big things he calls for is the disarmament of nuclear weapons. They just want to get rid of the nuclear weapons. It is a huge thing that he calls for. There's a lot of other dumb things that he calls for. He wants to create a national investment bank, so he wants to have a centralized bank instead of allowing private banks to flourish, which I don't think is so good personally. There's some other things, but generally this is perceived as a pretty terrible manifesto that just pretty much calls for, in a lot of senses, open communism. So expect Labour not to do very well in the snap election. I believe he's releasing more of this manifesto outside of getting leaked. He's got more to reveal in the coming weeks. I know. And in just a little side tangent with Jeremy Corbyn, he recently was being interviewed by the press, and he jumped into a kind of car to get away from them, and the car leaving ran over the foot of one of the press members, and it's just bad stuff follows Jeremy Corbyn, including the potential destruction of the Labour Party. So what's the next thing we have up here? Oh, yes, this Chechnya stuff. If you don't understand, Chechnya is it's considered a nation within Russia. They have these things called autonomous oblasts. Chechnya itself is a Muslim region in the Caucasus. They've had a lot of open conflict with the Russian government. But they recently called that they want to remove all gay men by the end of May. Which in the past they made a claim that gay people don't even exist in Chechnya.
I guess that means they succeeded, right?
Apparently there's more that they need to do away with. They're looking to detain and torture any gays that they find. Which, just to give you a little heads up, there's a lot of crazy Islamic extremism even happening within the natural borders of Europe, since Chechnya is a part of Europe. What are some other things we need to quickly go? And I know we're getting up there on time.
Yeah, we're already past 3 hours and 15 minutes.
I know people don't like it even when we hit 3 hours. So let's try to go through some of these really quick. I want to talk about the Austrian government, since I know a lot about the Austrian situation. Recently, the Vice Chancellor Reinhold Miltheimer of Austria resigned. And if you look at the recent election, the Freedom Party, which is a right-wing party under Norbert Hofer, they narrowly lost the re-election count to their current president. I forget who that is. But it's looking, instead of having a replacement, they're going to have a re-election to create a new government in Austria. So there's very likely a situation where Norbert Hofer could come back in, and the Freedom Party could win again in Austria, and this could lead to maybe them leaving the European Union, since that's like the main platform of the Freedom Party. So, even after Le Pen lost, and it's sad, and that was our best chance of destroying the European Union, it looks like there is another chance in Austria to do so, which, I thought that chance is gone, but it looks like the chance is back. Let's go into this Asia stuff quickly before we get out of the show. Do you have this thing on Japan?
I think you posted that.
Yeah. Here, let me pull up some stuff for that.
So, pretty much what this is saying is that Japan has a policy of pacifism.
Yeah, they've been disarmed
Yeah.
in a sense. It's in their constitution that they've been disarmed by the United States as, punishment for World War II. But I know last year they made a revision, their first revision in the constitution that allows them to actually expand their military.
Right. And it was actually back in 2012 when their Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, he was pushing for a stronger military. And that was really the first time that they've ever actually done that since World War II. And then they got that change to their constitution. So,
Which, if you look at the situation, there's increased hostilities with China and North Korea. China wants revenge on the Japanese to this day for killing them in World War II. So as Japan looks to reestablish their military, it looks like the region's even intensifying the heat. You look at North Korea is so unstable at the moment. You see what China's doing in the South Seas with the Philippines. There's always the Taiwanese situation. And now we're seeing the rearmament of Japan. So, the region's getting kind of more unstable. But I guess it's okay that our allies are arming.
I mean, keep in mind, Japan is the world's third largest economy right now. And they've got, very little military power. So if there is some sort of war that breaks out over there, they do need to defend themselves in any way possible. So I guess in that sense, it's a good thing.
Yeah. But, quickly, let's just get into the last thing I know you wanted to get into, which is this trade negotiations, which we have with China.
So China and the U.S. have finally reached a deal under President Donald Trump, which allows the U.S. to finally start selling beef back to China.
Well, there's a lot of provisions.
Well, yeah,
the big
there's a lot of
one's beef.
provisions, but that's the biggest one, which we haven't been able to sell our beef to them for a long time. So this is definitely going to, it's going to help our beef industry. And I think they said that in return, we'll be able to start purchasing some of their
poultry
products. So, that should, just having trade makes stuff cheaper in general. So, the price of beef and the price of poultry might actually start to come down a lot now.
Yeah, when trade lowers the barrier through comparative advantage, which I don't even want to get into at the moment. If you want to know how this works, you can look it up. It expands our agricultural and energy products we're sending them. China is also allowing us to have wider access for financial services being implemented in China. And, so it allows us to increase investments that our banks are doing in China. What's the next thing that is on the thing?
Which one are you looking at?
Off of Zero Hedge.
I thought that was it.
Yeah. Those were the main two. We've been dealing with negotiations with the Chinese to try to get a better trade deal for a little bit. The concessions that we've seen aren't really the best, but in cooperation with them trying to pacify North Korea, I'm pretty pleased with where we are with Chinese relationships at the moment.
Our relationship with China is definitely better than it has been the last few years.
Which, a lot of people were afraid with Donald Trump and his anti-Chinese rhetoric, but it seems like he's really brought that back.
We're actually helping, China's situation is getting better, not worse.
He wanted to identify China as a currency manipulator, but it looks like he's not even willing to do that anymore.
That's
which
fine with me.
They are, but I'm not too mad about what we're doing with China. We're continuing these negotiations, so we just need to keep an eye on where these are going. But, we're really getting up there on time, so I just kind of want to quickly close this out. It was good having you on, Sam, once again.
My pleasure, man. It's been fun.
Oh yeah, it's always good having you on the show. We'll try to have you maybe, I don't know, maybe in the next month again.
Right on, man.
Yeah, anything other you need to say, Bobby?
Well, I just want to say I hope everyone had a very good Mother's Day. To all of our listeners, even though by the time you listen to this, it'll be like, Monday or even later than that. So I hope you guys had a good Mother's Day. And
Hug your mom, y'all out there. Don't forget.
Yeah, and again, I wanted to say that documentary that I mentioned that they did at Texas State. If you go on YouTube, just type in Free Speech Texas State. It's the third one. It comes Free Speech on Campus. It's by John Rodriguez. It was a mini documentary he made. I know that guy very well. One of my former roommates actually is interviewed on that mini documentary. It's very good. I recommend anyone interested seeing what free speech on Texas State is like. It goes into better detail on that. It's a very well made documentary. And I just want to shill one more time the midweek mini podcast. It's going to be a pretty big show with Gabby coming on to talk to us about the border and the wall. But with that said, yeah, this is our episode of Trump Republic Radio for the week. I hope you enjoyed listening and have a good one.
Goodbye, everyone.